Okay, good evening, everyone. We are going to call the meeting to order. There is nothing to report out from closed session, and we are going to make an adjustment to our agenda.
Two adjustments. And can I translate for,
Sure. Oh, yes,
yeah.
please, Chris.
Si necesitan traducción o interpretación, nomás necesitan escoger al fondo de su pantalla donde dice interpretation. Hay un globo ahí. Pueden empujar allá y escoger español y luego van a poder escuchar todo en español.
And Chris, you said there's two. I think may have missed.
Yeah, so we are going to remove the Marcy Becerra single plan from the consent agenda. And then at the trustees' request, we are going to move up the district reopening planning update, which is 12.1B. So it will go first before 12.1A.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Principals will all be excited to hear that.
All right, Donna, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, and I can even hold the flag. How about that? Everybody, please stand. We ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, we're going to start off with 8.1 for our awards and special recognition. Parent Outreach Coordinators, Alma Diaz and Espi Nunez.
All right, I'll kick us off here. Hi, everybody. My name is Erin Fender. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for the Healdsburg Unified School District. I am so pleased to recognize, celebrate the successes, every positive word you can possibly think of. I don't know what we would do in any normal year, but let alone living through a worldwide pandemic without Espi Nunez, I want to say your full name, Espi Nunez, and Alma Diaz as our parent outreach and education coordinators. They have served a vital role always, and this year has been an extraordinary one that I really, really don't know what we would do without them and the work that they do for our kids and their families. I'm going to say a couple of words, and then we're going to kind of pass the torch around. Each of our principals have kind of a little story from the field to share of the work that they do for us. So Alma and SP, can you raise your hands just a little bit so people can see your lovely faces? They know who you are. Excellent. So one of the things that I'm so proud that Alma and SP do for us is they support our parents to be leaders. They support our parents who are bilingual themselves, Spanish speaking, migrant parents, to be leaders in our school district, in our community. This is evidenced by the number of parents they got to attend the SCO EL Leadership Institute. SCO, our county office, does a parent leadership institute for English language learning parents and migrant parents. And we had quite the showing last year, and we're set to have quite the showing again this year. So not only are they making sure they get training and support to attend important events, our parents are running the show more so than ever. They're running our ELAC meetings, our English Language Advisory Committee meetings. They're developing the agendas, and they're finding their voice and leading in our community. And I know that it's because a lot of the behind the scenes work that these two ladies do to make sure that our families understand, how to use the computers, how to set an agenda, and make sure that their voice is held as important as anybody else's. So thank you for the leadership development that you're doing for all of our families. So they not only have a seat at the table, but a strong voice at the table. So I'm going to pass it along to Erica McGuire, to Jeff Franey. Sorry, we're going to go from top to bottom. We're going to go our TK through 2 principal. Jeff Franey is going to take it over and talk a little bit more about some stories from the field and how they help us.
Thank you, Erin. Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to highlight the amazing work that Alma has done in regards to getting our families food. The idea of a food pantry was born from Alma during the actual school year when we were in person. Erin talked about how, parent leadership is born from our community outreach coordinator, and that's an ideal example. Soon after we partnered with Redwood Food Pantry, we had a number of parents coming on campus to help out to get bags ready to go. COVID hit, and Alma took the lead on it and transitioned it into what it is today, right now. Throughout COVID, we've served between 75 and 150 families each week, which is amazing. She's done other things as well, as far as getting masks, working with the North Bay Sewist, the Active 2030 Club, and some teacher volunteers. And it was funny when I was emailing Alma to get some exact numbers. She would give me a range, and then in parentheses, I lost count. So that's a pretty good thing to do, especially when you're organizing to get vital equipment for our kids. And then also helping our families in such a trying time as this.
Thanks, Principal Franey. So Erica McGuire, can you tell us a little bit about what you see Alma Diaz? And just so you all know, Alma Diaz serves our TK through grade 5. Our focuses on our elementary families. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap, but generally the work that Alma does supports our elementary families. Erica.
Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here to talk about Alma. Just echoing first how Aaron Fender started it. Last year, we were excited to bring on these positions and could not imagine this world of COVID without Alma working with us at the elementary level. So just a couple of things, and we'll talk later about the district and our site's re-engagement plans, and Alma is a vital part of that, doing home visits. There was a student, it's now probably a couple months ago, who she was working on re-engagement, and she developed a plan with that student and brought that student a treat after a week. I can't remember now what that incentive was, but went back to visit, just working with that family, delivering packets or talking with families about resources that they need. And then secondly, and again, we'll talk about this later, but in terms of parent leadership, also parent education, we have a fantastic kind of parent workshop series that has been implemented this year, and that has been with Alma reaching out to the community and our experts in HUSD, the school psychologists, our behavior specialists, as well as the Child Parent Institute, CPI, to provide workshops to our families. So can't thank Alma enough for her work.
Thanks, Principal McGuire. We'll pass the torch over to Principal Miller from the junior high, and he's going to highlight some of the work of SB Nunez.
Yeah, so SB is our version of Alma at the secondary for the junior high school, as well as for Healdsburg High School. And a lot of things I could talk about, but we've sort of divvied up the praise. And I really wanted to focus on what SB has been doing this year during distance learning to connect our families who need services, specifically those who might benefit from being in the Boys and Girls Club. She has actively sought out families who she knows have been struggling and may need services and may need transportation, and looked for those families in most need who would benefit from having a stable environment where their child could be supported. And she made sure that she identified and was persistent, because sometimes those families said, yeah, we're interested. She would try to connect them, and then a day or 2 or 3 went by, and she would follow up and make sure, okay, you said you were interested, or we want to make sure that this is happening because we know your child needs support. So other resources as well, but specifically wanted to highlight those students who she has helped get into the Boys and Girls Club. So thank you, SB.
Thanks, Principal Miller. So we'll hand the torch over to Principal Bill Halliday from our high school.
I'm also going to start with the word connection. At the beginning of our COVID and distance learning experience, the word connection was paramount to SB's work. And it began with a simple phone call about a family who was having a difficult time connecting with our district distance learning classrooms. And sometimes it was working with Comcast, sometimes it was coordinating a hotspot. And just basically, let's get this kid and the family connected to the school and the learning that needs to happen in this tough time. But where that went was really speaks to SB's expertise and how she built quick relationships and trust with families to identify different needs they had besides just a simple connection with the classroom, but a connection with our school community and what resources we had. And that first connection, led to a whole tier of support for so many of our families. Everything from how to navigate through ARIES or the teacher's PSL, to how to get to food pantry, to getting students, little siblings at Fox Creek or the older ones at Boys and Girls Club, and then some. And we have families who now just contact SB because they just like to have a conversation and receive her incredible support for during this tough time. I can't thank her enough for everything she's brought to our school.
Excellent. Thank you, Principal Halliday. Yeah, so you can see it's just, these women, they go to our students' homes. They walk with our families down the road, everything from food to hotspots and everything in between. Really want to thank you both. You'll be receiving a framed certificate of acknowledgement that you can hang in your home office or your office. So you'll be receiving a framed certificate of recognition, I should say, not of acknowledgement, and a little gift in your offices next week from us. Trustees, did you want to ask any questions or say any words?
No questions, but I've had the opportunity and to witness both of them at work, and just so happy to have you guys as part of the team, and just the difference that you guys have made in such a short amount of time. Just thank you from the bottom of our hearts for bringing in our Spanish-speaking families and letting them know that they are valued and that we need them, that they are our partners in education. So thank you so much for everything that you've done to make that happen for us.
Yeah.
I just want to echo what Araceli said. And as a student of Spanish-speaking parents, I know how important your work is and how much trust parents have to put into, Alma and Esperanza's work for them to be able to connect with you and ask you questions, sometimes questions that they wouldn't necessarily ask the principal. So I just want to thank you for all of your work and your outreach and getting families connected and making sure that there's, this level of equity between our Spanish-speaking parents and our English-speaking parents. So thank you so much.
I'll just add that I got to work a little bit with the two of them when I was on the DLAC committee, 2 years ago. And it's so apparent what they bring and the value that they bring to everything they're engaged in. There's a lot of studies that talk about the importance of outreach to families, and we are so lucky to have them doing it and showing amazing results because of it. So thank you both.
Yeah, I just want to add, SB and Alma, you guys have, Bill said connections. I would say transformative. You've been transformative in our district by building trust, not only with our Spanish-speaking parents and the schools, but with the school, with the school administration. You guys are trusted with us, and we go to you for advice when it comes to cultural nuances or things going on in the Spanish-speaking community. And so I just really thank you both for being that bridge. And building a more equitable school system as a result. So really, really appreciate it. And I don't know how we would do school without you, especially in COVID. So.
I will say it's important to acknowledge, and I apologize, I didn't say this at the beginning. I was looking at my notes of things I wanted to say, and I forgot to mention at the very beginning that this effort, we knew we needed parent outreach coordinators for, bilingual parent outreach coordinators. And the effort was seeded by the good work of the Healdsburg Education Foundation and the John Jordan Foundation. John Jordan seeded this money to make this happen with a lot of help and lift from HEF, from the Healdsburg Education Foundation, to make this happen. We've been able to take the cost in-house, but know that there's always a need. And, Healdsburg Education Foundation continues to help us with this, to support the positions. And we thank them for kind of helping us lift this. It was an idea, and HEF and JFF made it happen. So thank you to those two organizations. Alma and SB, did you want to say anything? You don't have to. This is for tonight for us to celebrate you.
If I could just say something, I really, when I came in to work with the Healdsburg Unified School District, automatically I felt like I was with family. And I just really want to thank you for supporting me and doing and letting me do what I feel is right and trusting me. I also want to thank the families. We have such wonderful families that that I work with, and I can't help but to look at the families and think that was my parent. That, and not make it personal. It's a personal commitment that I think that I make with the families, and I think that's that builds trust. But it's something personally, I feel like what I'm doing here is very fulfilling, and I love what I do every day. Thank you.
I also want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of the Healdsburg Unified School District, and for everyone welcoming us with open arms. I just feel like we're a family within the district. The principals open door policy that you can come to them and talk to them about anything or concerns about our families. And one of the things that I really enjoy when it comes to working with the families is making them feel like they have accomplished something. When we see their success as a family, to when they're stable, if food, if they don't have enough food, or whatever the issues are at home, but then we see the outcome when the families are more stable, the students are showing up to class. To me, that's a great accomplishment for that family, because they follow through, they do what they need to do to support their students' education. And when they have a concern, they come and ask how to make that connection, even with the teacher, even if it's writing an email in Spanish. So to me, it makes them feel powerful in a way. So I really enjoy working with the families. And just like Alma said, it just brings me back memories too, when I was growing up and I was doing translations for my parents. So now when parents have someone who they relate to or understand what they're going through and be able to help them, I really enjoy working there. Through the pandemic, I like to come into the office and working one-on-one with the families, because then they learn how to use a computer, how to write an email. So I really enjoy working with the families and showing them that they can also learn as well as their students. So thank you again for giving me the opportunity to be part of the Healdsburg Unified School District family.
Thank you both very, very much. And,
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I wish. So this is when we would love to bring you up in front and take some beautiful pictures and let everybody clap and celebrate if we were in person, and that day will happen. But until then, just keep doing the good work that you do every single day, day in and day out, to support our educators and our families. And I think we're ready to move to the next agenda item.
Great. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. All right, so we are moving on to celebrating our success, 9.1 elementary lunchtime activities. Co-principals Jeff Franey and Erica McGuire will be presenting this.
Yep, so there we go.
There we go. All right, so I get the theme I'm seeing and is so important is that we want to build like a tiered level of connection for our students. And part of the way that this was born was that we're seeing that students weren't getting the fun in school, whether it be the social connection, whether it be the introduction to something outside of their core content. And so it's really, really great to see each of these clubs kind of come about from the personal interests that some of our staff members have. So at HES, the clubs that exist are a STEM club, Mrs. Alcala, Mrs. Greta's Libros for Lunch Club, Mrs. Hernandez's Spanish Lit Club, Mrs. Logan's Yoga Club, Miss Grease, which is the Zumba Club that has become so popular, and Miss Fincher and Mrs. Grace's Lego Club. This has allowed, and I mean, we opened it up to varying grade levels, which has been an interesting kind of commingle virtually from our varying levels of students. But it really gives them an opportunity to meet somebody different. Maybe it's not their teacher, to engage in an activity that maybe they didn't do in their core content. And then also to socialize. I think a huge part of distance learning has kind of stripped us of that socialization that is so important in the development of our young ones. Following, we just have some photos that our teachers have sent. This is Mrs. Hernandez Spanish Literacy Club. And as you can see, based on the photos, some of our students are really, really dialed in. It's not just a place that they go to kind of zone out. And you can kind of see some of them are very close to the screen, which they're really, really engaged in activities. Here's Mrs. Greta's Libros for Lunch Club. So she chooses a book that sometimes does correlate to her Google Classroom and sometimes not. But it's a really, really great opportunity for kids to discuss literature, to be introduced to literature, and to socialize with each other. Here's our yoga club, our young yogis. I will say some of these students, I don't know how they do it, but they're going to like all of the clubs. But it's great to see, right? You can see that they're kind of getting introduced to something maybe that they don't know. In terms of yoga, maybe in overall just regulation of self through breathing exercises, and just another outlet for them to express themselves. And Miss Grease's Zumba class. This has been kind of a snowball effect. We were holding this in the NPR at HES campus, and it quickly turned into a photo-free environment, but yet we're on Zoom. So we're taking photos of all the fun that we're having, and this is one outlet that kids are really, really loving. I don't know how much the families love it, but it gives family, kids an opportunity to kind of move and shake throughout the course of their day.
All right, so at Fitch Mountain campus, and I'll kind of echo what Principal Franey talked about in terms of providing kind of social opportunities for students. What we found, the district sent out a survey in early October, and one of the themes of parent comments was about just kind of the lack of social opportunities for students. And that coincided with a conversation with site leadership at Fitch, and the idea of coming up with clubs. These clubs are at lunchtime, but some of them are also at other times during the day when students are not Zooming with their teachers. So this is the range of clubs that we have at Fitch Mountain campus, everything from movie club and creative arts to fitness and cursive, the lunch club or recess clubs, or social clubs, are kind of more opportunities that are with our paraprofessionals to provide, again, just kind of that social mingling, recess with Gabby, Lego club with Mrs. Fife. So again, a range of activities and opportunities for students to engage with each other and or something that is of interest to them. So again, here are some pictures. We have coding club with Miss Greyhorse. And I'll also say the attendance at the different clubs ranges and varies from week to week and club to club. lunch club with Miss Esmeralda, you'll see they're doing like a guided drawing. So again, and you'll also see, I think there's a theme too with both of our campuses. There's some students that show up in different pictures and different clubs who enjoy those opportunities. Next slide. Fitness club with Miss Keith. So you'll see the push-up challenge and their jump roping. We provided every student with a jump rope earlier in the school year, so they're making use of those jump ropes with Miss Keith. And I think the next slide has a creative arts with Miss Wagner. So she has a theme every week and something that she is doing with the students. Here's some of the guided drawings that she has done with the students that come to Creative Arts Club on Mondays. And we have some videos.
All right, so I'm hoping that this video is a little quiet. So I'm going to put it as loud as I can and we'll see how we do.
It's really fun by knowing other people, and Miss Wagner helps us really create.
All right, we have some other videos as well. We really wanted to, normally when we're celebrating our successes, we're able to bring students, to the meeting. We thought we would have some videos. So I think there's some other videos coming up. Recess with Mrs. Miller. So again, just some pictures. This is opportunities for students to socialize during club time with Miss Miller, and then Lego Club with Mrs. Fife. And you can see, again, students who have interest in Legos and are able to talk about their interest.
If it's okay, I'll play her video at the end of the slideshow, if that's okay, because I have it set up. Okay.
Yes, okay. And Spanish Club.
She's so cute.
Hi guys, what I like about Spanish and Spanish Club is in Spanish Club, we play Kahoot with Miss Rose and it's really, really fun. And in Spanish, what I like is on Dia de los Muertos, we watched the movie Coco, and it was really, really fun, and Miss Rose is really, really nice. So that's what I like about Spanish Club in Spanish. Bye.
Spanish Club hosted on one of our a minimum day, I think a parent teacher conference week, if I remember correctly. Now I can't remember when that was, but hosted a special viewing of the movie Coco after class Zooms. Was a Spanish Club hosted that. So lastly, we'll have the video of Ryden from Lego Club. While that's working with Karen. So, and I do think, again, teachers are constantly kind of sharing these opportunities with their students. Oh, here we go. Oops, don't have volume. It's volume.
Aaron, we can't hear it. I can hear it in your office, but we can't hear it on the computer.
Bummer.
Maybe if you unmute yourself, Karen.
A chance to talk to your friends, and also because
That's better. Can you start it over, Karen?
Guys,
good call, Christy.
So this is about Lego group. I really think you guys should come. I mean, I don't really get chances to show off my Legos very often, and I have lots of them. Because of the COVID and stuff like that. But this is really fun, and it's because you get a chance to talk to your friends, and also because you get to show off your Legos, you get to see other people's Legos, and you also You also get to build Legos while you're doing it. I just think it's super fun. I think you guys should go. It's amazing. I've only been there like 4 times, but it's fun. Miss Feist is super nice, and I really, really hope you think about going there. Thanks. Bye.
Is a great sales pitch from Ryden. And one thing I need to end with is a huge thank you to the teachers, because really obviously this would not happen without them. All of the lunch clubs are happening over the teacher run clubs are happening over their lunchtime. And so they are using that time. And so I should have started with that. So but a huge thank you to the teachers and other staff for running these clubs and opportunities for students. So it's been a great, I think we started in late October. And we've been happy to run them. So thank you to teachers and students.
Thank you, Erica. That just warmed my heart. I mean, just seeing that joy, the joyful learning opportunities, I just think is so beautiful. So thank you for providing those for them. I want to join.
Yeah, you heard the sales pitch. Go on. Everybody go to Lego Club.
And thank you to all the teachers for giving up your precious time and just providing these really wonderful learning and fun experiences for students and bringing joy back into this pandemic. So thank you.
I love that we are bridging Camp HBG 2.0 and these activities happening at school. I think Greta posted a video and you can see the staff at Camp HBG enjoying that Zumba lesson too with Gris and like the students all dancing. So I think it's been just it's almost like a sense of normalcy for students who are at Camp HBG who are able to join other students. So thank you for providing those.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know for our kids, it's been so good to be able to like hang out with the teachers that they would hang out with if they were on campus in person, to just be able to run into the teachers they love and say hi, and they can do that on lunch clubs and they really, really enjoy it. So thank you so much for doing that.
All right. Well, thank you again. That was beautiful. Moving on to public comments on non-agenda items. The public may address the board on any consent action item or item not listed on the agenda. Pursuant to Brown Act, during this period, the board cannot consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person.
And it's worth pointing out, there is also time after each presentation on agenda items for the public to make comments on those specific items. So if you do want to make a comment on an item that's agendized today, it'll be following the report.
Yes, and the way you would do that is you'd send a message using the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Please identify yourself and the agenda item on your specific topic in the chat comment. You will be called to speak in the order it was received and when the agenda item is discussed. Okay. All right, approval of consent agenda. We don't have public comments, first of all.
Yeah. Karen, did you have any public comments?
I do not.
Okay, so moving on to 11, approval of consent agenda.
And just remember that we are taking off 11.3C, the Marcy Becerra single plan.
Thank you, Chris.
I move to approve the consent agenda minus 11.3.
11.3C.
11.3C, thank you.
I second.
Oh, Rose, okay. So moved by Donna Del Rey, second by Rose McAllister. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, public comments on agenda items. Members of the public have the right to address the governing board on any items of interest, providing it relates to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Your request to address the board will be heard at the time the item is being discussed. In accordance with Board Policy 9223, individual speakers shall be allowed a total of 3 minutes to address the board for a maximum of 20 minutes on each subject matter. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Okay, so moving on to 12.1B, we're going to start off with the Healdsburg Unified School District reopening planning update.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk today about the planning that we've been doing to get schools reopened. We are not there yet, but we are getting closer and closer, and I'm excited to share some news and update you all on our efforts thus far. So Karen is getting the presentation up here, and I'll get started. So you can go to the next slide, Karen, please. All right, so part of the the difficulty in planning for reopening is the constantly changing guidance and planning from the federal, state, and county government. So you just have a list here of all the various guidance that we've gotten. Highlighted, California has issued now 3 different revisions to its guidance. Governor Newsom, we talked about our last board meeting in December, issued a plan for schools to reopen that is still currently being negotiated in the legislature. And we are, hearing they're close to a new plan, thought it was going to come out next week, hasn't come out yet. And then the CDC came out with new guidance just this week. And so the guidance is constantly changing. And so sometimes we'll go quite in depth in our planning, and then we have to pivot very quickly and change because of the new guidance that we've received. So while it is frustrating, often it is our duty to take into account all the guidance and to follow our state, county, and federal government on what we can do and can't do as schools. So a couple things about our reopening preparedness. The overarching theme is safety. We want to keep our students and our staff safe. We want to do everything we can to ensure their safety and make sure that nobody is getting sick and having complications as a result. And so we have, with a great sense of urgency, since last year, been working on reopening. We spent a great deal of time over the summer actually thinking that we were going to be able to reopen in August, and then had to shift midsummer when it became apparent that we couldn't because Sonoma County never left the purple tier, and that we had to stay in distance learning and to shift for a future reopening date. But again, we have been working with a great deal of urgency, following the guidance and working with our associations, both the Classified Employee Association and our Teachers Associations locally, as everything needs to be negotiated through this process. So I'm going to highlight some of the work that we've done thus far. At the beginning of the year, if you attend our board meetings regularly, you'll recall a discussion. The board definitely recalls that we wanted to keep class sizes low for when we could reopen, especially in the lower grades. We wanted to do as many grades as possible, but we really emphasized the elementary grades. And then we hatched a plan to hire additional teaching staff so we could have extremely low class size numbers. The initial hope was to be able to do it K3. We had considered for K5, but it became very expensive and prohibitive as a result. We weren't able to initially launch a plan for 4th and 5th grade, but we did decide as a board to do that for K3. We were only able to hire 2 additional teaching staff to cover, it would be 3 additional staff, K2. We couldn't find that 4th extra teacher at the time in August. There weren't any qualified applicants, so we weren't able to add an extra teacher in 3rd grade and keep those class numbers down. We also have hired additional social work interns to address mental health concerns in our students, knowing that we had no idea how long this pandemic was going to last, but we knew that it was trying on everybody coming out of the summer, and wanted to make sure we had increased staff to be able to work on those things. And then we've hired additional school nursing time. So we have 2 amazing school nurses who are leaders in the county when it comes to coordinating COVID-related services and precautions. And we increased an extra day of school nurse time to make sure we had the oversight that we needed in the consultation hours to make sure that our plans were being performed well. And then we have classified staff. So obviously we have transportation staff who aren't driving school buses right now. and other staff, for instance, campus supervisors who aren't supervising children because they're not in school. And so we've reassigned them to perform other duties such as cleaning and disinfecting behind the teachers who are using their classrooms and things like that. Go to the next slide, Karen. Personal protective equipment. Over the course of the last year, and we had these early on actually this fall, we've purchased over 30,000 surgical masks. Some were given to us by the state, some purchased. 37,000 pairs of gloves. Face guards. Teachers will have the option of not only, they will wear their mask, but they'll have the option of having a face guard also, that plexi shield that you can wear in addition. We have plexiglass installed in all school offices. We have purchased plexiglass barriers for teachers to use should they choose to when they return to in-person learning. So we're doing everything we can to keep our staff and students safe. So with the masks that we have, there will be masks for children should they not bring their own masks to school, and for all our staff to use on a daily basis. Health screening. So one of the things when schools are to reopen initially was that you were going to screen for symptoms. Guidance is changing on that. In fact, it's sometimes contradictory between state, county, and federal. So we are continuing to unpack that. But currently we have a system in place to be able to do health screening for people who visit. So we implemented very early on for anybody coming on campus that they had to go through this screening. We purchase walk-up temperature scanners, multiple scanners for each site, so that when we are able to open in person, we can have multiple points of entry with multiple scanners so that it goes much quicker, tells you if you have a fever or not. And then of course we scan we do a questionnaire based on how you're feeling, like you would if you went to visit the doctor right now. We are working we have surveillance testing set up through the Valencia laboratory system. We had surveillance testing set up for staff previously through, gosh, the name escapes me now. It's Curative. Curative, very quickly, we actually implemented it for a week, and then Curative was outed by the FDA as being potentially inaccurate. And so we dropped them quickly and went to the Valencia laboratory system. We have yet to begin. We're just now getting our kits, and we're going to start unrolling that with our staff. We have 14 people in the district that have gone through training as contact or line tracers. So we have obviously had employees back, and so we've had a few issues of quarantine that needed to happen. Happily, we have had no issues in staff or students in any programs that have contracted COVID at work, but whenever somebody has a positive or they have come in contact, we have to quarantine and contact trace. We've launched a large public service sort of campaign around wearing masks, hand washing, social distancing. They're all over every site. When you walk in the door, you can't help but see them in the bathrooms, and that's going to be there for students when they return. There will be a curriculum for our younger kids and reminders for the older about hand washing and sanitizing as well. We are developing a parent compact so that when we do return to school, students are not sent to school sick, that parents are screening them for symptoms in the morning, and that they are committed to responding quickly if for some reason, kids that go to school and they don't feel well. And obviously in this environment, we're going to need the parents to come to school very quickly to pick up any student who's not feeling well. And so we're developing a compact that families will commit to when we are in person to be able to do those things. And we have developed and created a system to isolate and care for symptomatic or students who aren't feeling well. We call them COVID care rooms. By law, they are called isolation rooms. We chose a different moniker just because we do want to show that we care, and we've got staff lined up to be able to be trained and work with monitoring students who are in those care rooms waiting for parents to pick up. Social distancing and cohorting. So the guidance is 6 feet apart in classrooms. We have diagrammed our classrooms and seen how many students can fit with this guidance. There is, in few instances, it's allowable to have 4 feet of distancing as an exception, not as the rule. And so we are working on that. Student to teacher distancing always has to be 6 feet or more. We are removing large pieces of furniture from classrooms to maximize occupancy. We're looking at outdoor potential, for holding class outdoors when it's doable. We are developing plans for cohorted recess time and breaks, so students will spend their break time in a group, a stable group, on a specific part of campus so that groups are not mixing. We are coming up with and have maps already diagrammed for the use of hallways and bathrooms, ingress and egress from school. There will be staggered drop-off times. It is all very involved, and there's a high amount of specificity that's demanded from the state that we are on top of in terms of our planning. And when we have our plan completed, we'll submit to the state or to the county for their approval. Stable single cohorts of students in grades TK5. So students will not mix in those grades. They will be in their classes, just one class each. At TK2, obviously the students only have one teacher besides enrichment. So enrichment would happen virtually. And the students would be with their regular teacher. We're hoping in TK2 to be able to do a schedule that's 5 days a week with a slightly modified schedule, a little bit shorter than normal school times. And then in 3-5, we of course have the specialist model where they have a teacher that's a humanities teacher and a STEM teacher. Students again will not be mixing. They will stay in their classrooms. Teachers will actually rotate classrooms to meet with students if needed. Right now, the model we are looking at is having students with one teacher per day, and then they'd rotate to their other teacher the other day. Again, a stable cohort of students. Students would attend school 4 days a week in an AM or PM group. And then Wednesdays would be a day where they do some virtual learning, doing some enrichment things and a small group with their teacher. And finally, hybrid schedules in grades 3-12 to allow for social distancing. We don't have the facilities, we don't have the staffing to be able to do a full 5 days a week in grades 3-12 right now. And so we have to maximize our space to, of course, keep our students 6 feet apart and 6 feet from their teacher. And so we are not in a position where we're going to be able to do 5 days a week. And as I've alluded to, we're developing these schedules, working with our teachers to negotiate them. And we're very close to having an agreement on these schedules. And as soon as we do, we will have them out to parents to understand what they are. But they were alluded to in a survey last week at elementary. Secondary, I will say we are in the midst of developing them. There is very little guidance from secondary when it comes to Sonoma County. So Sonoma County Public Health Department and the County Office of Education have put a lot more time and effort into giving us good guidance around elementary schools, as those will be the first to open. There's not a lot of guidance on secondary. And so we are looking to other counties and other school districts that have been open to develop those schedules, and then running through a process with our teachers and bargaining units to get them approved. Ventilation systems. So we have purchased air scrubbers or rapid filtration machines in every classroom. So we have an air scrubber already installed in every classroom in the district. That happened as of January. We have ordered MERV 13 filters. If you know about air filters, MERV 13 is kind of the highest you can go. It's hospital grade. We typically have MERV 11, which is high quality. It's much higher quality than most homes would have. But we've ordered MERV 13 as there is guidance that that is optimal. And so when we get those, we will have those installed in the HVAC systems that they will work in. We have implemented a system for tracking the use of district facilities. So anytime somebody enters a room, they're supposed to sign in that they were there. That enables us to know when we need to disinfect, and for contact tracing purposes, should there be an issue, we can easily trace using the paper trail that was created. High touch areas are cleaned daily. As I said, we've repurposed some jobs to put people into cleaning. And so there are people who float through the district cleaning doorknobs and light switches, et cetera, and will continue to do so. So as you can see, we're taking every precaution to keep everybody safe. Continue on, Karen, please. And again, a big part of our job in reopening has been following this constant evolution of guidance, and it's massively confusing, to be completely and totally honest. I want to say there has been no legal mechanism for schools to reopen since just after Thanksgiving last year, due to the guidance and the rules that had come out in California and Sonoma County until this very last week. So we had to go below the 25 to 100,000 purple tier to be able to even submit a waiver. And there are districts that have submitted waivers in the county. We were actually listed this morning in the Press Democrat as a district that had submitted a waiver to reopen. We actually submitted a waiver just for feedback. We did not intend to reopen yet. And so that was in error, although it does show that we are planning and pursuing that eventual end. We also, to be able to reopen, have to have a COVID safety plan that's approved by County Public Health Office if we're in the purple tier. And in that plan, there is a site-specific plan for each campus that must be included. The state has deferred these site-specific plans to local counties. And I can tell you as a superintendent, we have been lobbying Sonoma County for a template and guidance for sites since October 2020. And it wasn't until last Thursday, February 11th, that Sonoma County came out with this site template and rubric for reopening just last week. So we just got their guidance from Sonoma County, and I met with administrators that day and told them this is what we're doing for the next few weeks. We need to work hard to get these things done. There were some surprises in it, and so there's some new information that we're working on. But as I said, we've done a lot of planning, so a lot could be populated in this plan, but there are other things that we still have to do. And again, we need to involve our employees in making these decisions. And so it does take some time to be able to create these plans. Also, a big piece of my work and some of our work at the district office has been lobbying for our students. I have met with numerous government officials. I listed them out there. Met with the county superintendent numerous times, asking for more guidance, advocating for specific guidance that we think we need. I've worked through several associations that I'm a part of, Schools for Sound Finance, the Association of California School Administrators, California School Boards Association, and Leadership 40, which is a Sonoma County superintendents group that I co-facilitate with 2 other superintendents in the county, to get more guidance, to get more definitive ways to plan so we can get reopened. And it has been incredibly frustrating from our end to not have it. Understanding as educators that we want our children back in. Everybody in this district wants to be with kids again on a daily basis in the classroom. As a parent, I watch my own kids struggle, and it's incredibly frustrating on top of that. And so we've been working hard just to try and create change so that schools can have a clear path to reopening. And then I want to give kudos to our Director of Student Services, Diane Conger. She is our district COVID coordinator, which means she is over the safety, all this planning she's kind of overseeing. And she actually put together a countywide group of all the district coordinators that meet weekly so they can pool resources and collaborate and collectively advocate and answer each other's questions. And we're educators, so we beg, borrow, and steal from each other all the time, the best ideas. And Diane's group has been a huge leverage point for our county in terms of schools having some ways to get better information and move a little quicker on being able to reopen. So thank you, Diane, for your work on that. And then I want to say that we must negotiate working conditions for a safe return. So this is part of state law in California, and we have been working hard with both associations, the Classified Employees Association as well as the Healdsburg Area Teachers Association, since last year. I mean, we spent, it's over 45 hours this summer negotiating and discussing and talking with HADA, the Teachers Association, about how to open up. And then we had to pivot. We were all frustrated together when we realized we weren't going to be able to open in August, and we had to go back to talking about distance learning. And we have met consistently throughout the year this year. We do have a tentative agreement with CSEA, which is the Classified Employees Association, that we reached last week. And we are very close with HADA. We have some tentative language that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. And we have talks in the upcoming days and weeks ahead. And I'm confident that we're going to be able to get an agreement in place real soon. And it's the tenor of our conversations, especially our last meeting, have been highly collaborative. And I can say without a doubt, our teachers and our classified employees, they want kids back on campus. We just want to be able to do it in a safe and sustainable way. So a big announcement for us is that we have agreed with our Teachers Association tentatively, and this has to be school board approved and approved by the association, so the teachers would have to vote on it as part of a larger MOU or memorandum of understanding, which we are very close to finishing. But we've agreed on some target dates for reopening. And so there's going to be some correspondence going out to parents tonight, letting them know that these are tentative dates that we are targeting for reopening and some conditions that need to exist for it to happen. But we are excited. I'm really excited to share these dates. I'll tell you a story before I get into it. I went home last night and told my 15-year-old son, you can't share this with anybody, but we think we're going to be able to open Healdsburg High School on April 5th, which is there on the table. And he literally started jumping up and down with joy, saying, let's go. Just so excited to see his friends again and be part of the school community. And I've shared before, this is the kid who's normally it starts to rain and he tells me I need to cancel school because it's going to flood. And just so I'm really excited to share this with you all. We're looking at TK2 and 3-5, so both elementary schools potentially opening on April 1st. And then secondary schools, the junior high and the high school, potentially opening on April 5th. We have kind of two pathways to these dates being realized. First, we would want for TK2 that we have 2 consecutive weeks in the red tier in Sonoma County. 3-5 would be 3 consecutive weeks. 6-12 would be 5 consecutive weeks. We think the more likely and faster path to reopening is actually going to be vaccinations for our employees. I'm going to share in just a moment, they've already started. And so with the purple tier, you see that 4th row, this is the vaccination path to reopening. So should everybody be vaccinated? This is simply state law. Right now, you can't reopen an elementary school unless you're in the purple. There's now 2 purple tiers. So it's the lighter purple tier after 25 to 100 adjusted case rates. And then red tier for secondary is the requirement. You can't open a secondary school in California unless you're in the red tier. So, and then schools would have to be closed. This is additional California guidance should there be an outbreak in 25% or more of the stable groups. And so it's not a long-term closure, it's a 2-week kind of quarantine period. But so there is some trigger language should we have an outbreak in school. But I'm excited to share that I've talked to a number of administrators in other counties, and so far the people I've spoken with, none of them have experienced any sort of outbreaks in school, which is really good to hear. So if we can go to the next slide. Vaccinations. So exciting news. Our elementary staff is vaccinating right now. People have already gotten the vaccine. So last week we were able to start with our staff who were older than 65. This week we moved on to all elementary staff. They are getting the Moderna vaccine. So there's a 4-week turnaround between first and second shot. And then of course you need almost 2 weeks to build up immunity in your body once the shots are done. I do think it's worth noting that due to a lack of infrastructure, the schools in Sonoma County are basically vaccinating themselves. So the Sonoma County Office of Education led a charge to get educators and school systems together to come up with a way to vaccinate. And so we are basically sending our school nurses to go vaccinate at Rancho Cotati High School, sending some personnel over there to volunteer time to do administrative things like checking people in. And schools are vaccinating themselves in Sonoma County. So we get the vaccines from Sonoma County Public Health, and then educators are vaccinating themselves. That started. Our elementary staff will hopefully be done this week, if not early next week. And we're really excited that it's already underway. Even more excited to share that our secondary staff is not going to have to go through the SCO process. So had we waited for secondary staff through SCO, our secondary staff would be vaccinating in about a month, meaning they would be 10 weeks out from having immunity in their bodies and potentially being able to reopen schools. And so we were able to secure through Alliance Medical Center Pfizer vaccines for our staff at secondary. That will happen next week on the 24th at Healdsburg High School. Pfizer's a little quicker than the Moderna vaccine, so it's a 3-week turnaround and then the same time period to build up your immunity. And so we can have our entire district basically vaccinated by spring break. And we're really excited about this. I do believe that due to this, we might be the first secondary school, public secondary school in the county to open. In fact, talked with Dr. Harrington, the Sonoma County Superintendent of Schools today, and he explained that we may be the first secondary plan that gets submitted to Sonoma County. So we'll be trailblazers in the county for getting a plan together to have secondary schools be able to open. I want to speak briefly of our experience. So we have some partner programs. Trustee Lopez alluded to one earlier, Camp HBG 2.0. So that is the camp that we are collaborating with the city of Healdsburg to have some care for our kids, for families that don't have daycare during the pandemic. So their students go for the full day and they're zooming into school during that time. And we have about 80 students that are participating in that, and then some students at the Boys and Girls Club, as well as our preschool program at the North Bay Children's Center. So we have over 100 students in kind of satellite programs that we're partnering on. While we have had instances of quarantine because of exposure, we have not had any instances in any of our programs where there was spread from student to student or student to adult or adult to student. Any exposure has happened outside, and the spread was outside of our programs. And so it proves that the social distancing, the masking, the safety precautions do work in these programs. And that is what I'm hearing consistently from other schools as I talk to them about their experiences being open. So just a little bit of reassurance for everybody out there that it seems like these mitigation things do work. And we are confident that we can mitigate the risk for our educators and for our students and families by taking these precautions. We also have launched a new COVID-19 dashboard on our webpage. And so anybody can go on right now on the HUSD.com page at the top and click on, I think it says COVID-19 information, and you'll take you to our dashboard page, and it'll show you when we've had cases of COVID in the schools, the number of cases we've had and how many of them were community or school-based cases, et cetera, et cetera. So our path forward, we're near completion of extensive planning and securing of necessary resources. We still have more planning to do, chiefly because we get new guidance and we have, like I said, a new template that we need to work on. We are awaiting Governor Newsom's new plan. We don't know when that will come. Likely it'll come in the middle of the next few weeks as we rush to reopen. And so there will be a time where we have to pivot. We know this. We have to complete our site plans for the COVID-19 safety plan that we just received last week that I talked about. We have to have some stakeholder input in that process. So they will run through school leadership teams, governance councils, ELACs, and then bargaining units. And then we have to submit plans to Sonoma County Department of Public Health for review, depending on what tier we're on. If we get into the red tier, we don't have to submit our elementary plans, we'd submit our secondaries. And like I said earlier, we may be the first secondary plans that are developed in Sonoma County because of Alliance Medical's ability to get our secondary educators vaccinated early. We also have to finish our negotiations and our discussions and reach agreement, and we're very close, like I said. School board eventually will need to return all the criteria or approve the return to school criteria and plans. And then of course, we need to communicate out with parents and stakeholders. To that end, this is going to be shared. This presentation will be shared with parents this week, later in video format in both Spanish and English. There will be some engagement process at the school sites. As we did in the summer, we will have some town halls once we firm up plans and schedules and communicate those out to parents. And parents, you can look for regular updates from us in writing as well as plans come to fruition. But more than anything, I'm just very excited to say we have some target dates, and I'm very hopeful and confident that we can make those dates, April 1st for elementary and April 5th for our secondary schools for reopening. And with that, I'll stop. If there's any public comment, we can take it now, and then we can have board questions and discussion.
Okay. I believe Corinne Ephraim is our first public comment.
Yeah, hi. Good to see you guys. First of all, Chris, thank you. Wow, you've been working behind the scenes incredibly to make this happen. Seems like an incredible amount of work, so thank you. And I feel like I might just be jumping the gun a little bit, but I just wanted to throw a plug out for when later on, when you're getting ready to do the potential opening for the high school. One of the things that I was thinking about was, you know, there was a whole class of freshmen, right, coming into the high school that, you know, before the pandemic, they were nervous about coming to high school for the first time. And I know that a lot of them have gotten, in some ways, even more nervous now because it's been such a weird year. and they've had, you know, less normalcy with social interaction, even though, of course, a lot of them have been seeing, you know, their friends on the outside in a very safe way. So I just was hoping that there would be some conversation around thinking about what does that transition look like, not only just for the incoming freshmen who will now be coming to the high school for the first time, but just for all the students in general coming back into school after this very strange time. But particularly I was thinking about the freshmen, you know, for my own kids, but other kids, parents that I've talked to also just want to just kind of say that I think there should be some extra care taken to that transition period. And that's it. And thank you for all the work you've been doing.
Thank you, Corinne.
You're welcome.
Corinne.
All right, the next public comment is from Robin Doherty.
Hey, my name is Robin Doherty, and I've been an educator in this district for 30 years plus. I am the Hillsburg Area Teachers Association president. And I want to say that we, the teachers, are excited to push forward, but we also want to let you know that there are a lot of things, state and county regulations, that the district still needs to do. Symptomatic and asymptomatic testing for kids and for staff, as per the California Department of Public Health. The procedures, please teach us. The company name is not enough. Testing must be followed. And I question the plan that was just presented earlier. Schedules. Can we see them? These need to be shared with the staff and discussed with the teachers. And after the teachers, the schedules need to be brought to the table to negotiate. The care rooms. The rooms for the children who are not feeling well. Teach us the procedures. We don't know enough about this. Transparency. All the teachers need to be involved with their input for our kids. A handpicked select a few is not enough voices to be heard. How to ask for the information that was shared tonight yesterday at the negotiations meeting, and we didn't get it till tonight. Vocabulary. Are we using cohort or stable groups? During negotiations yesterday, we were corrected. Which one is it? Classrooms. The rooms, they need to be set up. Our rooms need to be ready. We need soap. We need sanitizer containers that are filled. We need paper towels. Are the classrooms large enough to fit all the students? We have been asking for these measurements since June of 2020. Air quality. Have the MERV 13 been ordered? I see now that they have been ordered. We asked in June of 2020 for this. Daily cleaning and disinfectant plan. What is it? Please share and teach us. What chemicals are being used? Please share. Logistics of physical reopening and returning per site. We need to have site discussions on this. How do we get 100 HES, 100 Fitch Mountain, 150 Hillsburg Junior High, 250 high school kids through the doors of our school with a COVID symptom check and a temperature check? Please share and teach us about this at each site. How do we identify who has not been checked before they come into our classrooms? How do we get 600 kids safely to and from school? How do we teach the parents about drop-off, or where's the bus drop-off? And what's the plan for our kindergartners? It's their first time in school. We haven't even talked about that. How many kids are returning for in-person school? How do we plan and prepare for this information? We, the teachers, are really optimistic about returning back to school, but we cannot sign off on a blank contract. The state and county regulations must be followed. Again, we are excited about the push forward. We were so excited that at the negotiating table, we pushed forward with the potential dates that Chris presented to you tonight. We're excited to push forward, and we're hopeful that the district will present us with a timeline with who is to complete these tasks and when by next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Okay, our next public comment is Allison Alcazar.
Good evening. I was not planning on speaking this evening, and honestly, I feel disappointed that I have to, so please bear with me. I come to you as a teacher and also as a parent. I spend many nights lying awake. How can I keep myself, my family, and my students safe? What is the best choice? I know they are suffering emotionally. We all are. After hearing this presentation tonight, I can't help but wonder, how was this COVID safety plan, the CSP, submitted to the state? We are listed on the website that we have a CSP in place. Our staff was first notified of this plan when it was sent out in a survey to parents, not to staff, but to parents. I can understand a misunderstanding at the county level, but can't understand how this mistake was made in 2 places. We asked for this plan in January and received a blank template, and we were stunned to find that it was complete. How will we test all of our students and staff as indicated in the guidance in Safe Schools for All? Red and purple tier openings both list symptomatic and asymptomatic testing. Some of the criteria lists that this is to occur weekly for all parties. Each time I attend one of these meetings, I become deeply concerned. As a teacher, I'm not simply trusting you that you'll have pencils for my students and their supplies that they need when they return to campus. I'm also entrusting you with my own life, the lives of my family members, our staff, and some of which are immunocompromised. Trust starts with transparency, and I'm anxiously awaiting this day that it will happen soon so that I can feel safe to return into my classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Okay, I have, let's see, Danelle Jenkins. She can unmute herself and speak.
Hello, I was just curious if there is a requirement for all staff to be vaccinated, and if there is a plan for that, then what is the protocol for when or if a staff member refuses to be vaccinated?
Thank you, Danelle. And just as a reminder, we cannot comment or engage in public comment. We are just here to listen.
Okay, and I believe that is all. Let me just check. I'm sorry, there's a lot of information here. Okay. So that is all. I do have a parent that it may email me her comments, and when I receive it, if we can, I can read it. But as of right now, there's no other comments.
Okay. All right, thank you, Karen. So this is a report. So are there any questions or comments from the board?
Chris, I know I've heard something about the COVID safety plan. Can you remind me what that is and what the status of that is?
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
All right, there's several different plans, and Diane Conger, if you're on, I would love you to jump in and help. But we, as an employer, any employer in the state of California has to submit what's called a COVID protection plan, which is through OSHA, Cal OSHA, and it's largely just a statement that you're following guidelines and there's open communication for people to be able to voice concerns. And so we have our COVID protection plan, the CPP, through OSHA, filed and done, and we have a mechanism in place for folks to be able to voice concerns. And then we've created our own, what we call a COVID safety guide, which is not a COVID safety plan. It does encompass all the different strategies and planning that we've done for health and COVID risk mitigation. The COVID safety plan, which has to be submitted to be able to be reopened, actually encompasses the site templates. So it's all the specific site planning that the state didn't give us. They told the counties to do, but the county didn't do it until February 11th. So we just received the site templates on February 11th. We did, as I said earlier, submit the plan to the county for feedback. Somehow mistakenly, they thought we were trying to reopen, and it was listed in there, and that was not the case. And Diane, I don't know if you have anything to add about the kind of alphabet soup of plans.
Yeah, so the COVID safety plan, it's very confusing because the COVID safety plan is kind of like the cover, the way that it was explained today, and I thought this was so accurate. The COVID safety plan is like the book jacket, and inside the book is the COVID prevention program, as well as the checklist. And so we did submit both of those documents without the school site plans because the school site plan templates weren't available to us. And one of the reasons why we did submit them in advance of those site plans was A, to get feedback from the county, and B, because we thought it might be tied to some funding. At that point in time, Newsom was asking everybody to get them up and running by February 1st. So those two things live in our giant health and safety guide, which has many, many more supporting documents, documents from the county, documents from the state of California, and some CDC guidance. Does that help you? And all of this is posted on our COVID resource page.
And so as we finish, so the COVID safety plan is not complete, right? We are still working on the site templates and the site specific plans. And the principals are busy at work with this. They're involving their staff. I know it's going to be discussed at elementary staff meetings this week and secondary shortly. So staff will be involved in all this planning. And again, we didn't have the guidance from the county until last week to be able to do this work. So that's why there was a bit of a delay. But like I said, we're deeply engaged and moving forward.
So this was your slide related to, it's going to be reviewed. The site plans are reviewed by the school leadership teams, governance councils, ELAC committees, and bargaining units.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that is underway. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's just beginning because
just beginning, right.
We didn't get the template till Thursday.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Are there any other questions?
May I ask a question, Superintendent Van den Heuvel? A lot of the questions that HADA President Dotary asked are in the site or in these plans that Diane has put together. Is that not correct? Not all of them, I understand, but is it many of the?
Some of them, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The more specificity as it relates to school sites will be in the school site plan. You know, you want to know schedules. Do you want to know ingress, egress, drop-off times, plans for breaks, plans for student screening, all of that are all in those site plans that are being developed now and will also be done in conjunction with the school site, the leadership teams and governance council.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So staff will have a role in the decision making.
Yes.
And we've communicated that.
Yes.
So just for so I'm clear, we have a TA with the CSEA, is that correct? The union?
Correct.
For our classified staff.
We do.
And we are still negotiating with the teachers union, is that correct?
We are. And as I was excited to share, we have those dates that we've tentatively agreed on, but we have more in the agreement that we have to finish. And a lot of it is this kind of safety guidance that we've been talking about. And
absolutely.
To Diane's point, the specificity at the sites is being developed again because of the delay from Sonoma County Public Health not giving us guidance until February 11th.
I had a bunch of questions that I won't ask because I think you've answered a lot of them, but I would like to make a couple of comments if I can. First of all, to thank our Chief Business Officer for working well with Alliance to get the vaccinations on the 24th. That was a big coup.
Yeah,
I don't know what she had to give up, but
so I would love to say Debbie Odetto was she is our CBO, and she was the pivotal person to be able to bring that to fruition for our educators and all our staff in secondary. So we're really grateful for that. I think it gives everybody a bit of reassurance. We've been seeing secondary, they have to come into the district office to fill out a questionnaire and make an appointment, and it's so fun to see people. And for the first time, a sense of optimism is there, and it's going to be great to see people actually getting vaccinated and moving on.
And if I could also thank Rob, our head of maintenance, Diane, and the nurse team for all the work on this medical, on the opening, the reopening, and all this COVID stuff that I've read what they've done so far. I'm overwhelmed. Fortunately, they're smarter than I am and can do this. But I also want to thank the school administration that's been working really, really hard with this, and the support staff that have been running around, getting all this together. And of course, our teachers. I mean, they're out there doing this every day, working really hard and working to move forward. And I got to believe that they have the dates. They're looking at April 1st and going, this is really exciting. If I were a teacher, I'd be, God, I get to see my kids in person. I think that's really exciting. And then finally, you know, kudos to you, Superintendent Van Uva. I know it hasn't been an easy pull, or as someone would say, an easy lift, but you're strong, you've done it, and we're not there yet. We got another ways to go, but I'm really pleased that you're able to pull everything together and all these people, and I'm excited for April 1st, which coincidentally is my son's birthday, so we'll have a big celebration.
I'll be the first to say we have an amazing team here in the district, and it's, you know, Diane, the coordinator, Debbie working on the operations with Rob, the principals, the teachers. It's everybody that's lifting to get this done. It's not me at all. So
no,
I'm just indebted to everybody and excited for kids. So
yeah, it is truly exciting. Yeah. So I'm thrilled. And I know we have more to do. It's like, but as I say, we now know, I hope, you know, so the lights at the end of the tunnel, we now, I believe, know how long the tunnel is. So I'm excited. Thank you. Thank you all.
Chris, I have a question. I know I asked this during our closed session, so I think it's only fair that I ask it now. Teachers can opt out of taking the vaccine. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's no mandatory vaccines, right?
Right, it's a privacy issue, right? They don't have to share
Correct.
that
And then you're in charge of your own health, so nobody can dictate that. But you know, unless there's an underlying health condition for why you couldn't be back in person, when the district does return to in person, the expectation will be that employees are working, whether they're vaccinated or not. And there is no state requirement that employees be vaccinated. No, it's just a precaution that we are choosing to respect our educators with. It's another layer of security. You know, CDC came out with a study that said scientifically you can open schools without vaccines and it's relatively low risk, but there's still risk, right? And so we want to do everything we can to mitigate that risk for our employees.
Hey, anybody else? Yeah, well, thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure, Mike.
And it's about our parents. It's like I have a note. He's like, we have parents. I know it's been really hard for them, and I know that they've got to be excited about this. And I know, however, when we reach out to them, as we reach out to them, I encourage them to give us that feedback back, because I know we have surveys out and we need those back. So if you're out there and you're listening now, or you know people out there, tell them to get our surveys back. And again, we want your input, and I'm sure you're excited to send your little ones and big ones off to school. So I just want to acknowledge the parents as well and their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Well, yes, I concur. It's going to be very exciting to see our kiddos back. And I know that I know my son's excited about coming back. So thank you for all your work to get this done. We are definitely in uncharted waters and navigating a lot of unknowns with not as much guidance as we would like from the state and county level. There's always more and more questions after all those meetings, but thank you for just pushing forward and working collaboratively to make sure that we can return safely and that we can get our kiddos back to maximize our instructional time with them. So thank you all for all your work.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving back to 12.1A, Hillsborough Unified School District Reengagement, Social and Emotional Learning and Tiered Intervention during Distance Learning. Another report.
Yeah, so we, several trustees throughout the year have voiced questions about distance learning and how we're re-engaging students in school and how we're caring for students in school when we're not actually in school, right, in this virtual environment. And so we took some questions to our principals and our counseling staff, and they're going to report back to you on all the various strategies that we're implementing to make sure our kids are engaged in learning in this bizarre time of distance learning during the pandemic. So we'll start with Principal Jeff Franey from HES.
We're going to start. So the elementary slides are together. So I'm going to actually start with the first slide. So, as Superintendent Van Hove talked about, kind of looking at how we are re-engaging our students, those who are absent from classes. So this kind of goes through the protocol that we follow. I won't read word for word, but some of the things that happen, our office staff makes phone calls. Attendance is a little bit different these days because of counting for attendance, both if a student attends a synchronous class, a live Zoom, or they do asynchronous work. But any absence receives a phone call from the office, usually the next day, since teachers have extra time to account for that asynchronous work done by students. Again, the live call is made by the office. In addition to that, and I think kind of most importantly, is that the teacher outreach to parents, checking in, sending, at Fitch Mountain campus, we use a program called Class Tag, but also through ARIES and phone calls and other communication systems at HUS campus that teachers are reaching out to parents through those phone calls and emails when a student is missing from their classes for a couple days in a week. I've been observing in a classroom and a teacher has said to a para, "Oh, can you call so-and-so who's not in class right now?" So they are definitely doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Those who are chronically absent, the ones that we are working to re-engage, they will get phone calls from me. This is where, again, going back to our parent outreach coordinators and Alma Diaz at the elementary level are making those phone calls, doing those home visits. We're following the SARB process, and even though the district attorney isn't, they're not holding the truancy court this year, but we're still following the process and sending the letters, having parent meetings, the search, which comes after the second letter with unexcused absences. And then, very importantly, identifying, whether it be from the teacher, from our parent outreach coordinator conversations, or myself, those students who may need other interventions, kind of the social emotional concerns that have all been talking about that are arising in distance learning, and seeing where we can fill the need, whether it be with Leslie Charlesworth, our school psychologist, or our counseling intern, Vanessa, and trying to work through those systems to develop systems that students need, whether it be, we have students that are working on kind of point systems with their parents. I think one of the difficulties and a conversation that I have with parents at every one of my attendance meetings is that we're asking them to not only be, help support their students' learning, but they also have to do the things that we would normally do in a classroom, which would be, incentivizing on task behavior, all the stuff that a teacher would do. We're asking parents to take on that role, aside from their regular responsibilities of being the parent. So we are counting on those partnerships and the relationship between the teachers and the parents, as well as our other staff, parent outreach coordinator, et cetera. Next.
Okay, so in continuing with the support systems that we have in place during distance learning, the social emotional piece that we're finding is so important. We're trying to really reach kids and engage them in things that are more formal, like in their core content, and then informal. And that comes in the form of lunchtime clubs and activities that our paras and our teachers have given more time to run, because they understand the importance of that. Leslie Charlesworth, like Principal McGuire mentioned, and our interns are available for students that are just needing maybe a little extra one-on-one time, or counseling services that are going to help them re-engage or move through something that they may be going through. We're in our first year of Ruler SEL curriculum, and the first year is dedicated to kind of the staff and what does this look like. And so the staff goes through different aspects of the Ruler curriculum, and the Ruler curriculum is all about just identifying your emotions, and that the life you live, your emotions can fluctuate, and then identifying what that emotion is and then dealing with it in a positive, healthy way. We also have monthly virtual family nights and events. Greta, Alma have been instrumental in creating a space for students to connect. I know that I've seen some of our board members on those as well. And then daily class check-ins with students. A simple, how are you doing? This week is kindness week. So we're running through what it looks like every morning. What is a compliment? What can it do for somebody? What is a thank you note? What is kindness? How can it impact the people around you and then the world that you live in? On a more academic focus, we set up our instruction in a small group format. So teachers are meeting with a whole group and then breaking it down throughout the day with the support of our paraprofessional teams. Intervention teachers at K2 and RSP teachers at 3-5 kind of help out even more as another layer of intervention for students that are struggling. And then there's after school reading lab and after school math lab at 3-5 and grade 3. I will finish by saying that there is such a sense of urgency around keeping our students engaged. I'm constantly getting text messages and emails from teachers wondering if I could step in or Alma could connect. I know that they're making home visits and they understand that even now during distance learning, consistent engagement is key in moving forward. So there's nothing but appreciation and hard work coming from all of our staff at both of our campuses and even at the secondary, because we do understand that engagement is vital, no matter if we're in distance learning or not.
And lastly, a very important component, which is supporting our parents, as I talked about previously. This is a difficult, uncharted waters for all of us, and parents are definitely taking on a role that they have never had to take on with their students learning. And so, again, as mentioned earlier, when recognizing Alma, she has been instrumental in putting on this these parent workshops. So whether it be through our ELAC meetings and having, so in October, Xenia Horning, who's a district psychologist, presented on and talked with parents about managing stress during distance learning. One of the things we're finding, and this may be generally, but certainly at the elementary level, is we're getting a lot more parent participation with these events that we're able to hold virtually. So parents can Zoom in from their homes. And so we've had, great attendance, 25 parents or more at a lot of these. In December, supporting social emotional health during distance learning. Again, that was with Xenia and Leslie. That was just a parent workshop for all parents being invited, held simultaneously in Spanish and English in different breakout rooms. Alex is our behavior specialist, and he and Leslie in January ran a workshop on managing behavior at home and how to set the stage for positive behavior and managing behavior when it may be more difficult. And then in February, and this next March and April, working with the Child Parent Institute on this workshop series, Raising Resilient Children, and then Parenting, Coping with Stress, and then Mindfulness. And I'll also say again, in building parent leadership as well, a lot of these topics came from conversations that Alma had with parents, as well as responses to our distance learning survey in the fall. But again, really trying to give parents the support that they need to help support our students, which then again, just kind of all part of the team, as we always are in every year, but I think more so than ever this year.
All right, so at HJH, we're doing some things that are similar, some things that are a little bit different than at the elementary school. So similarly, students who are absent for one or more class periods receive a text, email, or call generated that goes to the parents. We also do weekly follow-ups with any student who falls below 60% engagement or attendance for the previous week. We've had numerous referrals to the Boys and Girls Club for students who demonstrate a lack of engagement while at home. And then personal calls and home visits have been conducted by myself, school counselor, parent outreach coordinator, and actually others. I know school psychologists attended one this week with our counselor counselor, Ms. Carlson, who will be speaking here momentarily. We are also following the SARB procedures when there's little or no progress made with our interventions for attendance. Hopefully Ms. Carlson will speak a little bit more to what she's doing with supportive attendance, specifically with some of the home visits.
Yeah, so as Principal Miller said earlier this week, Xenia Horning and I went and we did a home visit. We've done them throughout the school year. It's been really beneficial just to have that in-person communication. We do these after multiple attempts to reach the student, and if it's unsuccessful, we reach out to the parent to see if we can set up a time just to brainstorm, how do we get this student back on in class, and really making a student a part of that problem solving. So it's not just us saying you need to attend. There's often multiple barriers in the way, preventing them from attending. And in a majority of the home visits that I've been a part of, there's a need for some extra mental health support. And so I've been able to make those referrals and get them set up sometimes within the week with one of our partnering agencies. So yeah, overall, it's been a really beneficial experience.
In terms of academic supports, we do have students and parents who engage with the parent or student portals to make sure that they're checking in on their updated grades. We provide academic counseling, which again, Ms. Carlson will speak to in a little bit more depth momentarily. We provide teacher office hours, and our teachers have been great about not only having the office hours, but realizing that students won't always necessarily reach out themselves to say they need help. And so many of our teachers are reaching out to students and encouraging them to please come to their office hours. I know of one teacher in particular who I believe has met with nearly all of her students one-on-one throughout the school year. Instructional support is provided by paraprofessionals as well as our student advisor, who is sort of pivoted more into a role of supporting students in academics this year. We have other support classes, including our math support class. We provide regular progress reports. We have meetings, phone calls with individual teachers, myself as the principal, school counselor, parent outreach coordinator, who call home and speak with individual parents and students to try to find out what more can be done to encourage them to engage more with their academic progress. And then we did, after a lengthy discussion, move towards an academic advisory that has been implemented so far in the second semester, which I can say that through communication with our various stakeholders groups, the ELAC committee, as well as governance council, just reaching out and speaking with students and parents individually, they are liking the advisory and thinking it is an improvement over where we were previously. And hopefully I can report back soon an increase in academic achievement as a result of that. Ms. Carlson, if you want to speak a little bit more about what we're doing in terms of academic counseling, that'd be great.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, I'm doing a lot of reaching out to parents and students, and it's great when the parents give me their child's cell phone number so I can text them. It's been the most successful way I've been able to reach them. So if I notice all of a sudden that they haven't attended, first or third period, I can text them and say, hey, what's going on? And sometimes that's the little reminder they need to get back online on Zoom. I've done, parent and student meetings, informal. So I don't necessarily need to do student study team meetings because I think the students would be capable of academic success on campus, but for whatever reason, it's not connecting during distance learning. So having the parent and the student on the Zoom with me has been really helpful, and just coming up with a plan to get caught up, an organizational plan, some goal setting. And I also have created at the beginning of the year a Google Classroom for counseling. So I push out all of my academic counseling resources through that. I have just created an online way for students to book an appointment with me so they can look at my calendar and see exactly when I'm available, which is really nice. And parents can do the same thing. A big part of that, as Principal Miller said, is just encouraging them to go to the office hours, because that is going to be the #1 way that they get caught up in individual classes. So that's a lot of what I'm doing on my end.
If we can go to that, perfect. In terms of parent and family supports, we do send regular communications that includes our newsletter, but we also have lots of other communications that go out for a wide range of things. One communication I saw went out this afternoon to try to get parents and students to contribute so that they have a picture for our yearbook. But there are numerous communications that go out about any and everything that is occurring at our site. We have family counseling that is provided through UThrive, so that we've partnered with UThrive. They have grant funding to support us this year. We have individual parent calls, meetings, something that Ms. Carlson alluded to. And then we had our parent town hall to sort of explain what distance learning was going to look like. And, as we make changes, we'll continue to communicate with parents as a result. In terms of professional development for staff, in August, just as now as we're looking at, potentially returning back to in-person learning, when we were going into full distance learning in August, lots of questions. How are we going to make sure everyone's connected? What technologies are we going to use? How are students going to be engaged? And what does attendance look like, et cetera, et cetera. We went through a lot of that. And I could say that one of the things that was very beneficial in August was having staff teach staff. So teachers who were proficient in various instructional technologies taught each other, kind of demonstrated to the rest of the staff how to use those. And, we've leaned on each other to make sure that we understand those. And then in November, after participating in the SCO convening, we looked at what student engagement in distance learning has been and hopefully could be, as well as some of our grading practices. And that discussion led to the development of our academic advisory that we now have.
All right, so there's multiple ways that we've been able to incorporate social emotional learning through distance learning. The first thing is the Y-Try curriculum. So this is the first year that we've used this, and it's a great program. It's evidence-based, it's focused on relationships, resilience, relevance, and our PE department was kind enough to take this on. And so they've been, since the fall, facilitating these lessons and covering areas such as goal setting, decision-making, coping strategies. And the PE teachers shared with me that they really like the program, and they noticed the students really connected with the visual analogies and the videos, and there's like music videos, and they make it fun. So it's a little cheesy, but in a good way. And then another way we're incorporating it is just in the classroom. The teachers are doing a really good job of checking in with the students. I know in the fall, when they didn't really know the students very well early on, they would maybe send a Google form doing an individual check-in. But now that we're in February, the students seem to know each other better, and they have more of a community going on. And so A lot of teachers will just pose like a question like Tuesday, since they don't really see their students on Monday now. How was your weekend? Or throw a fun question in there. And then the students can either use their voice or they can chat on the Zoom publicly. And if maybe a student has had a horrible weekend or there's something else going on, they can just send a direct message to that teacher. The teacher could then follow up with them in an email or even pull them out in a breakout room and then loop me in if counseling would be a good next step or if the student's comfortable with that. I know one of our teachers went above and beyond over the holidays and made handmade cards for individual students, like highlighting what they appreciate about them, sending hot cocoa packets, things like that. So they really want to show that they're, they really appreciate their students. They care about them. And then next would be academic advisory. So Principal Miller talked a little bit about that already, but this has been the perfect way to do these check-ins. I've been fortunate to take on one as well. So I have got a group of 8th graders, and we just do a little kind of a informal check-in at the beginning. A lot of the teachers have their students fill out a form just saying, how are you feeling today? And then we are doing one-on-one check-ins anyways during that time, and sometimes group check-ins. And so that's a perfect way for me to say, hey, I noticed you said you were feeling anxious today, like what's going on? And then, we incorporate games, other community building activities, talk about goal setting, things like that during that time. And we have such small groups that it's the perfect place to do that. And then I already said this, but teachers reach out to me if after checking with the student wants to talk to me, or they'll just sometimes BCC me on the email, so I'm aware of it, just in case something maybe comes up down the road with the student and I kind of have that background on them. And then finally, we have, there's a couple more things. We've got a really good counseling support system right now. Actually, I feel like we have more counseling services available than I've ever experienced in my 7 years at the site. We not only have the behavior specialist, our school psychologist, a counseling intern, but we have continued our partnership with Side by Side. We have a Youth Thrive group that runs every week for a group of boys. And then we have SOS. It's like the juvenile diversion program, but it's the community counseling part of it. And I've made dozens of referrals alone just to these 3 agencies this year. And one of the benefits is like SOS, they don't even need insurance. So I can get the student in within the week, they can get set up, and it's not this waiting game that has often taken place. So, and then finally, something that I really enjoy is being a part of the Gender and Sexualities Alliance. We have had this club going for 6 years, and once we shut down in the spring, I didn't really know whether to continue it for the rest of the year. And so in the beginning of this year, I reached out to Mr. Owen, one of our teachers, and I said, hey, do you want to just try this and see what happens? And so we got it going. We've got 4 to 5 staff members showing up every week. We've got 15 students involved. It is like the most successful year I've ever had running this club. And they are very passionate, want to create lessons for advisory and educate our students on LGBTQ issues and why pronouns are important and things like that. So we have that every week. We started out every other week, and they're like, can we just meet every week? And can we do like the entire hour? And so my Thursdays are pretty full, but it's really fun. And then finally, Miss Weiss started a club called the Kermit Club, which was apparently inspired by one of our 6th graders who's obsessed with Kermit the Frog. And so they every Friday afternoon have just a casual hangout time. Costumes are encouraged, stuffed animals, you can show your pet. It's really cute. I got to go one time, and it's like the perfect way to end the week. So overall, we're doing a lot of good stuff. And yeah, I think it'll be great to be back, but I feel like we've been able to support our students a lot throughout this time. So I don't know, Principal Miller, do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I think you did a very good job of explaining our social emotional support. So I think we're past the baton on to Principal Halliday.
Well, one of the benefits of working from your office and being the last person to go is I get to give everybody a quick stand up and stretch, or maybe practice one of those yoga moves our elementary students are doing, because I now need to go turn off the alarm in the main office so it doesn't go off at 8 o'clock. So I'm going to mute myself in case I don't turn it off correctly. And then I'll be back in just a second. So stretch, and hopefully I'll see you in just a quick moment.
Well, does anybody have any questions of for the HES, Pitch Mountain or Hillsborough Junior High presentations?
I don't have a question per se, but I just want to say that I'm really happy we're doing this presentation, because this has really fleshed out so much for me around the wraparound services that we're providing to these kids right now. And I am floored by all of these things that are going on, often in addition to teachers and staff, other, staff members, regular, whatever that is nowadays, responsibilities. This is amazing. It's really, really amazing. Yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you, Trustee Del Rey. Anybody else?
I actually have a question surrounding academic support for Chris. You mentioned that we have, there's math support classes available. Is that in addition to the regular math class, or is that?
Yes. So students who could use an additional support or intervention for math do receive a regular math course, or general education math course. And then as in support, they have a secondary math course to help. Primarily, it's hopeful that they will help fill in some of the gaps that they've had along the way. So we utilize a program called Math 180 to help support that in our math support class, in addition to some direct instruction.
Yeah, I guess my question is, we have these students sitting in, on Zoom for quite a long time, and I'm just wondering if it's beneficial to their, to them to have a second class on top of their, or their academics already. So maybe, and we don't have to answer this now. I could, I can totally chat with you off, off Zoom, but just adding another academic class on top of maybe, academics that they're already struggling. I don't know if that's, as beneficial as, one-on-one support with maybe their teacher and sitting down and talking, or having those one-on-one discussions, maybe on their asynchronous day, or after school, or during the Zoom sessions. I know that the high school is stalling the Play-Doh program that we have because of how long they've been, they're sitting on Zoom. So I was just, I'm curious to see, and maybe this math support class is super beneficial, and it's, the students are excelling. But I'm just curious to see, or to hear from some of the students who are taking these math courses, and how they feel about adding on another academic class on top of their already pretty rigorous day.
Okay, well, so thank you, Crystal. So we're going to go back to Mr. Halliday for him to do his presentation. Then we'll come back to the comments and questions for everybody. Is that okay?
Okay, and trustees and participants, thanks for your patience while I take care of that. Going through this, I want to emphasize how much this is about team and our strategies for engagement, and how many people are involved both on site and in the community to make sure that these steps are put in place and are effective for students. I heard Principal Franny use the word urgency. We have a real sense of urgency, especially for our students who are the most disengaged, which remains our focus. We believe that these steps we've taken as far as attendance, the procedures that we have in place are solid, with consistent communication on a daily basis, and the letters and the follow-ups. But we really think that the most important part is finding the students that are really have stepped away from us and figuring out a way to re-engage them. And second, as I mentioned when I was talking about SB earlier, what is it that's the impediment for the family and for that student to engage with school and be successful? And for an example, we do our SARB proceedings. Yes, we have letter 1, 2, and then we have our SART meetings. But what we're finding is the antecedents to poor attendance are very different during COVID than they are in traditional school times. And so we have to address those. And I now facilitate all the SART meetings, and it's a much more soft approach than it was in the before times in-person learning, because we find out, for example, that some of our students who are disengaged have had to take a part-time job to help out the family in financial need. Some of our students who are disengaged are watching their preschool age nieces and nephews or little brothers and sisters at home, and they can't go to certain classes. So the intervention strategies around attendance are very different than they are in-person learning. We also have a great partnership with those organizations that are mentioned on this slide and others, and we have a very good relationship, and we also have a good strategy of making sure that we identify the people that can assist with whatever need presents itself. And again, I want to mention that our team includes our clerical staff, starting with Sit Lawley, our other clerical staff members, our counselors have been instrumental in this, Xenia, Diane, it's a whole team. And also, I want to state very clearly that a lot of the attendance support motivation comes from our classroom teachers who contact us with their concerns and get this process started. So let's not forget about the teachers who are a very critical part of this process. Next slide, please, Karen. Again, a lot of similar supports as the other schools, progress supports, errors, parent portals, academic counseling. As I've mentioned in board meetings past, never seen Mr. Flores and Ms. Mace work as hard as they have this year in making appointments with kids and doing academic counseling that leads to also emotional support and referral. Our paraprofessionals and support staff are meeting with small groups of students via Zoom and providing additional academic supports. We also have tutoring, and our students are directed to tutoring. We now have a new bell schedule, which, as you know, has office hours in the afternoon, and students that are struggling or disengaged are directed to attend those Zooms. And truthfully, some of our accelerated students are accessing those office hours most readily too. I want to talk a little bit about the new bell schedule. Some of our initial data and information is very positive about a new bell schedule, which has less Zoom time for students, more time for students to work on their own, more time for teachers to meet with students outside of the traditional classroom schedule, and also has our Wednesdays where we just have a homeroom, and the rest of the day is for students to work on their assignments, catch up, be in contact with their teachers, and our teachers to both do professional development and lesson planning. And we're seeing some good results from that. We also, again, I'm going to talk about the teachers for a quick second. They have demonstrated great flexibility, great relationship building, and great accessibility to our students through distance learning. And a slide of bullet points can't represent how much our teachers have been reflective learners through this process and adapted their practices based on student feedback in their interactions with our students, especially after our first grading period, when we were quite frankly shocked with the number of D's and F's that we had in our first grading period in the fall of this year. And I'm pleased to report that while we still have progress to go, from the first grading period to the end of the semester, our overall D and F rate decreased as a school by almost 13%. So we had a great decrease in that. And by classes, it decreased by 12% for 12% for freshmen, 1% for 10th graders, which I can't quite decide exactly why they didn't decrease as much, 14% for 11th graders, And while they had a much smaller share of the overall DNF rate, our seniors had a reduction in their DNF rate of 36% from the first grading period to the end of the first semester. So that's really good news. And the other academic support that we sent out there that we frankly called an academic lifeline for our seniors is we allowed teachers to give students a no mark if they were a senior and received an F in the first semester. And we gave seniors a till February 1st to make up assignments and get their grade to a passing grade, to again, with the hope that they would earn their diploma or lessen the chance of the number of students that would request a waiver from us. And we had 8 seniors who received a no mark at the end of the first semester. 4 of those seniors improved their grades. 2 of those seniors are potential to be able to improve the grades, and 2 of the seniors I will be bringing forward if it's approved by the board for a waiver in closed session at the next board meeting. Next slide, please. Okay. Ms. Mays, our counselor, has been kind enough to stick with us tonight. I see her down at the bottom of my Zoom. Kelly, if you want to add anything on this slide, please feel free to unmute yourself and chime in. Again, our social and emotional supports start with our counseling department with Ever and Kelly. Xenia has been very much involved with this, and then team success and keeping kids in school and side by side. We have a lot of individual meetings. We, at this point, don't have small groups, those type of things like we do in in-person learning, but we do have a lot of one-on-one, both academic and referral resource meetings. Homeroom started second semester. Every teacher at the high school has a group of 25 grade divided students. The idea was just to have a simple check-in, attendance taken on Wednesday. The homeroom, we're hoping, and very transparently hoping, this is our kickstart to have a more proper advisory program in the fall of 21 for the high school, woven into our schedule, and we're working with teachers on that currently. And then a little bit more about home visits. We've had home visits from our counselors, from myself, from our student advisor, Mike Edwards. We've consulted with Diane Conger and Xenia Horning about students that may need some home visits, and those have also, we've gotten those referrals from teachers at different times for students that we're most concerned about. And I would like to add to a little bit about social and emotional supports. We talk so much about academic involvement and intervention with our students. And one of the things that I know we all have great concern about is a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of something besides a series of courses that you take online. So I want to take a quick moment to mention that our clubs, both new and returning clubs, have been active throughout the course of the school year, and our class officers in grade 9, 10, 11, and 12 with their designated advisors are actually ramping up activity planning with the hope that we'll be able to do more in-person safe activities towards the end of the school year. We did ask our class advisors, based on the economic circumstances that we find ourselves in the pandemic, to not do a lot of fundraising this year, but more team building activities, which we'll probably continue that theme throughout the year. But I do want you to know the clubs right now that are active, and in fact, tonight, one of them had an activity just this evening at sunset. Our FFA is still doing activities. Our Bringing Change to Mind Club, run by John Camp, is still active. We have kickstarted, thank you to Sharon Pollock, our Gay Straight Alliance Club at the high school that was dormant for a year, and that's going. California Scholastic Foundation is going. Our Interact Club, Model United Nations with Jamie Atwood, Skills USA with Chef Corsino. And we have a new club called Young Empowered Women, which our very social justice oriented student, Isabel Soto, has been instrumental in spearheading, and she's partnered with Riley Dale to have a new club on campus. And then the next slide. Communications, newsletters, texts, emails, principal letters all go out to parents. Again, a little bit of repetition, referrals to outside agencies. And then we've been doing a lot of just individual calls and setting up Zoom meetings, not just from the counselors, but from other staff, our special education staff. Teachers have asked to help to facilitate some meetings. And again, just reaching out individually and trying to get the kids to reconnect. Professional development, we've been really focused on instructional strategies. We've been really focused on engagement strategies and how to use instructional technology to best enhance your classroom. And then lately we've been doing more work on safe Zoom practices and tech and engagement strategies, and also assessment, looking at assessment and distance learning. And I do want to compliment our faculty again, because the professional development by and large has been run internally. We have a lot of internal expertise, and we've been relying upon that. And many teachers have stepped forward to work with their colleagues and just do on-site professional development. And I think, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Bill. Thank you, principals, for sharing all of that amazing work that you're doing. That is great stuff. I do have some questions. I have a couple of questions and a request, if it pleases the rest of the board. I really enjoyed the presentation from our elementary schools and sharing how they're just making these joyful experiences possible for our students. That was just really heartwarming. And I would really like to have a similar presentation, learning what our class advisors, our class officers and club advisors, especially our class officers, right? Because that's all of our students. I would like to know what has happened to date and what's planned for the future, because I'm just curious how we are reaching out to all of our freshmen and our sophomores, our juniors, seniors, and then also at the junior high level. I'd like to know what a little bit more in terms of, we got an overview kind of what the clubs were, but I would like to see some evidence of that joyful learning that we got to see from our elementary students. So that's a request. I don't know if how the other.
I'll second that.
Okay, great. So Superintendent Vanden Heuvel, if you could help us getting that on the agenda for next time, that would be great.
We can certainly work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the other question that I have is, so I know that we did some major revamping of our bell schedule to support our students, specifically our struggling students. And I as a board member, we don't have, it's not our job to advocate how students get supported. So definitely don't want to do that. But I do want to know how we know, or my questions are like the what. How do we determine which students need those additional supports, and what are we using to measure their academic learning? Like what are the tools, what are the assessments, how are we exiting students out of those support services? So I'd like to get some clarity around that. Like, are all of the students being given the opportunity to get that additional time to learn? Because I actually, I know that Trustee Lopez was a little concerned about the additional time, but I actually advocate for that when students are struggling, because we know that the only true thing that makes a difference is the quality of the supports, right? It needs to be really focused and intentional support, but it also they need more time. And so how are we providing that for all of our students that are struggling? I too have that real sense of urgency, and I'm really concerned about learning loss for our students. And we all know that in this Zoom environment, it's much more challenging to engage them. And so I really am concerned that we have some perhaps disengaged students, and just want to make sure that they are that we are catching them, that they're not falling through the cracks, and that we also have some clear goals for what supports we want to provide them and clear understanding of when they are ready to be exited. So lots of questions. So not really, you guys get to discuss the how you do that, but if you could share that with us, that would be great. So those are my questions.
And Trustee Verma, I guess to clarify my question, I guess my question was more, I want to know too, what is the end goal of, the second math course? Is it more work for the student and more student, or is the end goal for them to test and to be successful in their regular math class, right? So we want to know, and I think we didn't have that clear information there. Are they in that second class as a form of support, and for them, and the end goal is for them to be in that regular math class, or is it just work in Zoom for them? So that was, I guess, that to clear my question, that was my question was surrounding the workload and the extra Zoom time.
Yeah, the intention. Perfect. Thank you.
And I'm going to add on to this a little bit that, yeah, I mean, there's so many great things happening, but that just seems, at least as far as what I'm understanding, is how are we, again, identifying, what are the criteria that we're identifying kids that need intervention? And I was really struck by something Principal Halliday said about, trying to catch kids or the kids that have stepped away from us, and how do we bring them back? And I started thinking, well, how do we get them before they step away? How do we find when this kind of starts to happen? When it, it can just, I don't know, maybe those things are a little more subtle, and I mean, we seem to be collecting a lot of data, and how do we kind of jump in earlier? And I feel like this is a big conversation and maybe too much for tonight. But I think this is really, it's a kind of a bigger picture around intervention goals. Yeah. Anyway.
I think partly, at least for me, I feel like I just want more clarity. Like, Principal Halliday mentioned that there's good results, and I just want more clarity. Like, what are the good results? What does that mean? What is it based on? What assessments are we basing that on? Are we basing it on grades? Are we basing it on common assessments? So just clarity around how we're measuring good results, success, student achievement. I'd like to get more information about that.
And to me, it also kind of feels like we're doing so much, and it literally just might be clarifying how that all comes together and how it, and then how do we measure the impact? I don't really get the sense we're not doing enough. Yeah, anyway, because we seem to be doing a lot, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, phenomenal. Yeah.
And we can work on clarifying data for you and put it in an update if it pleases the board. And I think part of the conversations I'm listening to is there's, how do we know it's working right now in distance learning? And then Donna, listening to you, it's the bigger picture, how do we do this on a consistent basis once we're back in person and things are normal?
Right. Yeah, for sure, because I fully appreciate that right now is so different anyway. The criteria probably are different. It just looks, and everything looks and feels so different. But
yeah, it's definitely two distinct systems just because of the way we have to encounter students in distance learning. So,
and from what I'm hearing, a lot of crisis intervention, or just on the verge of crisis intervention, because of where we're at right now, which it makes complete sense, right?
Yeah, and there is a distinct disconnection because we all can't be together, right? And so it's harder to intervene at an earlier time just because you don't have that daily interaction with the kid where you would get that sense normally if we were in person. So, it is definitely complicated here, and we're, as we've said numerous times, building the plane as we fly it in some cases. So, but happy to get some more data for you. I know both Principal Miller and Halliday have data around grades on first semester, and then, seniors who pulled through and got grades up, because if you recall, we did the incomplete kind of waiver at the semester for kids to make upgrades, things like that. So we can definitely get you some data to show some movement and how we're getting kids into interventions and exiting them, et cetera, et cetera. So
great.
I think it's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I just really appreciate the difficulty of the process of building the plane while you fly it. And it's really clear from this presentation and all of the bullets that are mentioned at all the levels that there's just been a lot of care and work and flexibility and creativity that's gone in to try to, you know, continue to do this very difficult, ever-changing task. And you know, I just think I think there's even more a part of what's happening right now for many students is practical. It's having the space to work, it's having situations that enable, you know, academic work to even happen during the day. And I really just appreciate that, you know, that just so much care is going in from all of the adults involved to help the students. But I also just want to mention that I have a lot of compassion for the students as they try to make this work. And it's not easy right now for anyone, so.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Well, Rose took the words right out of my mouth, so I won't repeat them, but I do want to acknowledge all the teachers that are working hard at this, the counseling staff and all the support staff and the leadership at the schools. I mean, just knowing that the social emotional learning and the needs of our students are being addressed. It's not perfect, but they're being addressed. We're doing what we can, and I think beyond what many other school systems are doing. I'm very pleased. I know we're all looking to get the kids back in our laps, so to speak. And hopefully when that happens, at least it'll settle down, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of still work to do in this area, but I do appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you for your work.
We have one public comment. Okay, so Robin Doherty.
So I would like to say I love the fact that you have brought up this topic, and I would really like to talk to you about it, but I'd like to know, how do I talk to the board members? I looked up that there's a policy that controls the email responses from the board, or and I'm wondering that when I email you, I wonder who is really responding to me. The communication between the school board and the teachers wasn't always monitored so closely. So how do I know who I'm talking to if I was to send an email to talk about this issue?
So Robin, as the board president, I would be responding.
Okay. If I wrote to another board member, would you be responding?
If you just wrote to her, but she would be sharing it with us.
Okay.
Critical. Yeah.
All right. So I know in the past it was different. So I would love to talk to some board members about the support. I am one of those support teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comments, Carrie?
Let me check one other location. Sorry, just kind of jumping around. No other comments.
Okay, thank you. Then we're going to move on to 12.1C, the high school graduation requirements. And this is an action item.
Okay, so this item will be, we've alluded to this a couple of times, but Aaron Fender and Bill Halliday are going to walk you through the changes to the grad requirements. As we have discussed in previous board meetings, we need to change the policy first so we can enact them.
Aaron, were you going to get us started and then I'll take off?
Sure. So as it says in the cover sheet, you know, we spoke about this at the last meeting in concept and discussed a concept of an individual graduation plan for our seniors. And it seemed that there was positive response to this idea. So we formalized the concept. And so what you see in your board packet is the actual, the concept that we spoke about, the credits, proposed changes, and the form that our counselors would be working with students and their families to work on the individual graduation plans. I think, you know, as I said before, and just reminding us, it's a wonderful thing that we are in a school district the size that we are, and that we've got, you know, about 130 seniors, and that we can tackle this student by student. Since that last meeting, Principal Halliday, Kelly Mace, and Ever Flores, our 2 high school counselors, we had a good, nice long meeting, and we talked about, again, this concept. And Ms. Mace and Mr. Flores had the list of students that they were having conversations with that they were worried about. And so the 4 of us as a team had a really wonderful, open and honest dialogue about each student that the counselors were concerned about. And so what we're bringing to you tonight is pressing forward in order to get the forms and the board policy. So you'll see there the last part of what's in the board packet is the actual board policy document with the revisions noted in it. I'm going to let Bill talk a little bit more about, kind of how this is playing out and timeline, next steps, numbers of kids. Well, actually, we may not talk about numbers of kids in open session, but it's a very small number, thankfully. So if you want to put your eyes on the actual board document, you'll see in red the changes that we're asking to be made due to the COVID pandemic. Students are not enrolled in freshman seminar, nor were they last year. So we are not currently running this course. So, we needed to be real thoughtful about what courses are offered, when and why. And so the freshman seminar course was not offered last year, nor will it be offered next year, sorry. We've had conversations about the safety concerns around structured service learning. And so making allocation for that, that's in item 11. The concept of the individual graduation plan, that we would look at each individual student one by one, making sure that we hold them to the high bar, to the rigor that we have close to UC 8AG requirements, but making individual graduation plans for kids that their mental health, their ability to cross that graduation stage needs to be modified. And that includes both HHS and MBA students. So the plan here is for tonight for you to hopefully approve the new board policy and the documents that go along with it, including the form that the counselors would use to get parent principal signature. And then in closed session in March is when we would bring forward each of those individual students, what their graduation plan is, what we're asking for waiver and why. Principal Halliday, do you want to add to any of that?
Yeah, I want to add without, going back and adding histrionics to it, but our students who are graduating this year have been through a lot. And it's not just the pandemic, it's fires and floods, and we've talked about it a great deal. And I do want to say tonight that we're not presenting our students as a group of victims that need a complete safety net. We actually have a group of survivors, and very few of our students are going to require an individual graduation plan. And I've got to give them all sorts of compliments for overcoming their challenges to pass their classes and get to where we are. And as Ms. Fender mentioned, we don't have a lot of students that we'll be bringing forward. And some of the students, through the different lifelines that we've offered through the course of the year, have been able to come up with recovery plans, not individual graduation waiver plans. So compliments to them. I also wanted to say that we do think it's very important that we waive the community service requirement. We think it's very important that our MBA students who faced a particular set of challenges even before they entered our alternative ed program are allowed to pursue a graduation diploma with a 180. We also have put in the plan the potential for the state minimum, and we think that while that would be a rare case, we want to make sure that that option is still available if it's necessary. And then just lastly, I want to state that really very collaborative process. Again, like so much of what we've done during the pandemic has been between Chris and Aaron, myself and Kelly and Ever, very productive in looking at individual students and looking at our graduation requirements in a very thorough way. And many of the board members here tonight were involved in the process. We have very rigorous graduation requirements at Healdsburg High School. We've set a very high bar for our students. And we think in this time it's only appropriate that we have a little flexibility for those few students. And again, Kelly has been kind enough to be here tonight with us through this presentation. So if you have any questions of any of the 4 of us, we'd be happy to answer those.
I want to add, ordinarily, we would bring this to you as a discussion item and then bring it for action. We felt like we have discussed everything that's encompassed in here already. We just didn't bring you in the policy language, so it is an action item tonight.
I have just a quick question. I'm noticing that on the changes for the Marcy, there's an actual credit minimum still lower than the normal credit minimum, but with the non-Marcy for just the Healdsburg High School class, it's more of just there's a few like knobs that can be adjusted, right? So there's no necessarily minimum.
For currently enrolled Healdsburg High School students, we will have a handful of students that we will be a small handful of students that we'll be bringing forward in closed section that need a little bit of, I like that, knob adjustment.
Yeah.
Graduation plan, yes.
One might be a dial over here, another one might be a different dial over there, but it's not necessarily a minimum of 200 and whatever, or 180 or whatever, like Marcy.
Yeah, we might be asking the board to waive one CTE requirement for a student, right?
Okay.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is waive the minimum amount, not.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say there isn't a minimum set, which makes me a little nervous. Like, could a HHS graduate with less than 180 credits? Because there isn't a floor. But I get it now. I get what you're trying to do. Is just give some flexibility. Those last courses, yeah, all good. Thank you.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have been in HHS till a senior if they were in that dire of straits. They would be a part of our alternative ed program prior to second semester of being a senior.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you all for being such compassionate leaders. I just think this is the right thing to do. And, it could be literally like a life and death situation for some of our students. So truly, I just want to thank you for being such compassionate leaders, for being so thoughtful with this board policy revision and these, what did you call them? Individualized graduation plans, individual graduation plans. I just think that is the right thing to do. And I just want to commend you for having the forethought to do that and to bring this to us. Thank you.
And the commendation should really go to our counselors, and that they've created, this condition of support and push. And I think our kids really feel that they're going to be held accountable and they're going to get pushed, but there is a breaking point, right? And that when we need to support rather than push, that we're human beings and we will do that. And that has been the feeling in our high school counseling office since I've entered the district. And I think this is an example of it. And really think Kelly's the one who came up with a lot of this form and made it all nice and fancy. And we're the ones who kind of get to take credit. So thank you, Ms. Mays.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I'm very appreciative. So thank you.
So if it pleases the board, we'd ask that you pass the revised board policy for graduation requirements that's in the packet. In detail there, it's, let's see, I'm trying to pull up the board policy number here, 6146.1, that will allow the changes that we've discussed.
I have a quick procedural question. Do we have to then revise it again next year, or is this clear that it's a one-year thing?
Well, it's not really a one-year thing, right? Because it's also waiving some of the freshman graduation requirements.
Correct. We're noted and we're trying to foresee. It says due to COVID-19 in the class of, so we're naming to date what changes. Yeah, good question. I will say we're looking at other, we're trying to do that support and hold for all of our classes because we know it's not just this class.
It will need to be revised to take this language out of it, even though the language already be outdated, right? So at some point we'll have a revision where we're seeking to take stuff out. So
thank you.
Yep.
Also, Erin, can I address what Donna Del Rey said? And also, I cannot take credit for this because it was a team effort. But I do want to point out that you're not wrong, Donna, that a student from HHS could graduate with 130, but it's highly unlikely. And in the language, it does allow for that, but will most likely not be that low. And we are trying to be very generous and very creative while supporting and pushing, like Aaron mentioned, but it is a possibility. And I wouldn't want to come back in the spring with a student who's going to be graduating with a lower number than maybe we would like, just so you're aware of that.
Well, I mean, the reality is, I guess, since we have to approve all of them, we could say no. So, I mean, I don't know. I've never done
true.
this. 8 years on the board, I've never done this. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
that's another little carrot, stick, support, push. Yeah.
True.
Point.
Yeah, you'll look at each student and their situation in closed session next month. Mhm.
It would have to be an extraordinary situation
Yeah.
to get down to 130, and I'm not hearing that that's in the vision at this point. So given that, I would move that we approve revising board policy 6146.1.
Do we have a second?
I'm unmuted. I'll second.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, so motion by trustee Potmasil, seconded by trustee Donna Del Rey. Do we, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you all for your compassion as well towards our students.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, moving on to reports. We have a HEF report tonight.
We do not.
I don't think so.
Still thinking. And then had a report.
Yes.
Robin?
I want to say that the teachers are thankful and excited about the vaccines. We just love that fast push. And we are hopeful for continued movement towards reopening and the tentative agreement with reopening dates. And the teachers really do miss their students, and they are so thankful for the partnership with the families during distance learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. All right, CSCA report. Do we have a CSCA
Yep.
report tonight?
I'm here.
Susan?
Hi, everybody. I just want to say it's nice to see faces and not masks on people. I had Erica send me a picture of her because I haven't gotten to see her pregnant, and it was really exciting and nice to see her without a mask and being pregnant. So anyway, I want to thank Debbie Odetto for working so hard to get Alliance on board with vaccinating our staff. We've started already with some of ours in Runner Park, and so we're excited about that, and we're excited about just getting back. Classified staff has been on, working since August 1st. We've been there every day. And we want to, just say that it's been challenging being there without students and without our staff, but today was exciting news, and we were happy and in shock also that it's happening this fast. But we're ready to have them come back and to see them and get back to a normal routine of not just talking to each other, but actually working with kids. Once again, I do want to thank all of our classified workers for coming back in August and doing a great job with support. When we miss everybody, and we're excited. We're excited.
All
So
right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Susie.
Okay, do we have a student trustee report from trustee Vikram Johnson?
So I mean, the only thing I can really report on is that there's a sense of, I feel like, especially after today, there's going to be a sense of hope for students. At least for me, I definitely got a sense of hope when I figured out my mom got the vaccine, because she works for schools, and I was like, they're finally doing teachers. And so I knew there's some sort of movement going on. And it was surprising because I remember in the January meeting, Chris was saying that it's very unlikely for high schoolers and or the second group of schools to go back in session. And now hearing that there is a set date, and even though like there is a chance that won't happen, and there's like no definitive answer whether it's going to happen or not, it's still like it brings at least me hope that I'll be able to go back on campus, see all my friends, and just have that social interaction that I've missed for the last year. And I'm speaking on behalf of other kids who are probably feeling the exact same way. So yeah, that's all I got.
Great.
Thank you,
so much. Thank you, Vikram. All right, do we have a Board of Trustees report? Anybody like to share out? Nope, hearing no. Okay. All right, so we will take a 5-minute break and be back at 8:45. Okay, see everyone then. Thank you all. Okay, so we are back to 12.2 and 12.2 student learning equity and school culture continued, and we are doing the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, CASP, during COVID-19. This is a discussion item brought forward by Erin.
Okay, Karen, can you go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint? Okay, so discussion, there aren't a lot of slides here. Things are rapidly evolving, as Superintendent Vanden Heuvel said. You know, we are literally getting new information almost on a daily basis, and this is one of them. You know, the school safety plan, we just got the template last week from the county finally after begging for it for months. Our surrounding counties have had it, right? Marin County's had theirs. So evolving every day. When I put this together, we didn't know that we'd likely have vaccinations. Cardonia, our new federal education official, hadn't been approved. So there's some things in here that are out of date as of last Wednesday, but we'll go through it. Next slide. So, you know, this time of year, a big part of my job and the principal's jobs in grades 3 through 12 would be getting ready for assessment season, the spring assessment season. And so as we've inched to this point where we really need to make some decisions about what we're doing, where we're putting our time and energy, it was time to speak with you all about what our thinking is as professional educators and where we think we're headed. Both locally and taking our cues from the state and federal governments. So what we've learned locally, and I keep hearing from other educators that I talk to around the county, that we learn from administering other assessments that in person is best. You all have talked about what assessments are we giving. We continue to give STAR literacy and math. We can continue to give our kindergarten assessments using the ESGI platform. We continue to do most of our regular benchmark type assessments. We've pulled away from a few of them, sometimes because of time, sometimes because of accuracy. We just don't trust that there'll be accurate measures in an online setting. So when we think about testing all 3rd through 8th graders and all 11th graders for CASP, doing that remotely presents all kinds of issues around connectivity, helpers, right? We already see we have parent helpers when we're doing STAR. We literally like parents whispering from the side of the screen, or coming on and saying, my kid needs to take a break. Connectivity is an issue. Screens, in order to do the assessments online, they would have to be screens. So we really don't think that the CASP doing it online will tell us anything. And, in order to bring us up to speed, I have here in my hand a letter from Dr. Harrington, who is our County Office of Education, dated yesterday, September 16th. So too late to put in the board packet, but this is a letter from Dr. Harrington, our superintendent of schools within the county. He's copied Miguel Cardonia, who is our new U.S. Secretary for Education, along with all of our senators who serve at both the state and federal level, with a very strongly worded letter. I'd like to read just a little bit from this letter because you don't have it in your board packet. He says, if staff and students return to schools only to pivot to standardized testing within days or weeks, it will only compound many of the complications of addressing very real learning loss and exacerbate the negative aspects of statewide assessments. We regularly receive reports from teachers and principals each year of the negative impact these assessments have on students. Panic attacks, significant anxiety, physical illness is not uncommon. In a year where the mental health of our students is being jeopardized on a daily basis, we must seek ways to alleviate, not exacerbate the issue. So we are currently planning hard to do many assessments. We do our regular grade level assessments. We will be doing advanced placement assessments, and we'll be doing the LPAC, which is the English language assessment. Taking on CASP at this point feels nearly impossible. So you've got this slide about challenges. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Talked about some of this. I'm going to skip to the last two bullet points, is that we do anticipate that the State Board of Education will ask for flexibilities and waivers. Again, last minute kind of stuff. There was a State Board of Education meeting scheduled for last week, I think it was February 12th, to discuss the CASP and applying for a waiver. But because of the impeachment hearing, there was no process to apply for waiver. So the feds had not indicated and still have not whether states can apply for a waiver. There is a State Board of Education meeting scheduled for next week, for the 24th, I believe it is. And one of the agenda items is discussing flexibilities and waivers for the CASP test. So we do anticipate, and this is all about timeline kind of stuff, right? We're planning reopening our schools safely. We're planning advanced placement tests, planning the LPAC test. Right now, our planning is that this test would not tell us good information, and that we need to, and that we think we'll have a state waiver once the feds open up that possibility. Let's go to the next slide. So instead of putting our energies right now, I just want to be transparent with you that we are hoping, fingers crossed, that the CASP will not happen, certainly in our community, given that we are just returning to learning. There may be some communities that have been back, some of the smaller communities where they've had some in-person learning going on, and this may be a valuable assessment. But it's my belief, the principal's belief, I had them talk with their teachers to make sure if we go down this road that we're not going to be missing data that teachers would value, because that's an important thing as well. We have the benchmark and diagnostic assessments that we feel good about, the teachers feel good about, and the data is reliable right now. We know we'll be doing some more assessment when we get in person, and then again next year. But being honest with you right now, we don't have big plans for CASP. And so wanted to put that out there, take any questions or concerns or comments from the board. As things evolve over the next couple of weeks, Dr. Harrington's letter yesterday, the State Board of Education meeting that'll happen next week will bring you more information, either in the form of a board update in writing or at the next board meeting. Rose.
So what's the likelihood that the CASP test just isn't going to happen?
I think it's a good likelihood.
That's a change from the last administration that was using it as sort of a lever to get schools to reopen, right? I mean, so we're pretty confident that's going to take a big turn.
We're confident at our county and our state level. We are still waiting for the newly sworn in, as of I think yesterday, federal educator,
Okay.
Mr. Cardona.
Okay.
But the state board and our local county has indicated that they don't believe we should press forward.
I mean,
is there any penalty if we don't press forward and they say you have to do it?
It's a good question, Mike. A question we CNI directors have been asking our county office for months. We don't yet know. There is some precedent for this. The Santa Rosa City Schools did not take CASP the year of the Tubbs fire 4 years ago. And what they did see is that the dashboard indicators that were attributed to CASP all dropped into the orange category. There were no financial, there is worry that the feds could hold the titles money, could hold Title 1, 2, 3, and 4. I will say if we're told in the 11th hour that we need to muster and do this, and that there will be penalties that are too great for us to take on, either financially or otherwise, that we'll do our darndest. But given that we may have 8 weeks of learning with kids in person, and otherwise the test examination results seem completely, and even then,
I think the word is invalid.
yeah, thank you. So we're kind of in a wait and see right now, right? We're not saying we're not doing it. We're just saying we need more, but to plan and all the things that need to happen right now, we're going to plan for really good LCAP. We're going to plan for a really good advanced placement examination. And we're going to continue to focus on other things right now.
I agree.
If we have to switch gears, we'll switch gears. If there's, and that's why I'm not asking you all to approve us not taking CASP right now. We're just talking about it.
So what would be the outcome if the dashboard was to drop down to the orange because we ended up being not in the main, in the majority? Like if a minority of districts decide not to take the CASP, is it going to matter for outward facing?
Sure. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. In those areas where the dashboard relates to CASP. Yeah.
So one of the things that I do appreciate about the CASP is that it's a consistent assessment that everyone takes, and it's a consistent rubric. It's a consistent measure of knowing whether students are proficient or not. I really like the fact that there's that consistency. So what would be our consistent measures? So I know that we have STAR, Renaissance Learning STAR for math and language arts. So I think there's some clarity around that at the elementary level. I'm not as clear at the secondary level in terms of what those common assessments would be. I know that we have some singletons because we're a small high school, so there might be some singletons, but for those classes that are not singletons, is there going to be a common assessment, a common rubric? That would be really important for me to know before making this kind of decision.
Yeah, really good question. So we do administer STAR through the 8th grade. So we use STAR for STAR reading through the 8th grade. We do not use it at the high school. What we have relied on for English language arts is our local writing benchmark assessment. So Vikram probably remembers as a student, it was a school-wide writing assessment aligned to the genres, done at least 3 times a year, sometimes 4. We've put that on hold this year, that writing assignment. We are having conversations, Principal Bill Halliday and I, with the current department chair of the English department and next year's department chair of what are we currently doing? What do we feel good about grade level assessment? And you asked the question about whether it's grades, a common final exam, a common writing assessment. So by grade level, there is currently that discussion going underway for both English language arts and math. Math continues to do these small 5 to 7 question dips that are teacher created. You guys might remember that Todd Sheehy and Jamie Outwood showed us the formative data that they were using. So our integrated math courses, rather than doing kind of a semester or even 3 times a year, they feel like they needed more frequent dips into the data. And so they have been continuing with doing the integrated math 1, integrated math 2, integrated math 3. So for English language arts and math, there's still, I'm not going to lie, there's still work to be done, particularly at the high school, and cleaning some of this up and standardizing and systematizing. K through 8 STAR, or not K, we rely heavily on ESGI in the kindergarten. And then a whole bunch of other assessments. We use BPST, we've used DRA. But STAR is our go-to, and then we fill in some of the gaps with some of the other smaller assessments where we feel like we need more information or more frequent information. And like Superintendent Vanden Heuvel, we're developing a spreadsheet that we can bring to you all that by site shows what the assessments are, what they're given, what grades, why we give the assessment, how the assessment is used. So we can bring you that information in detail.
That would be great. Yeah. And if we could have the information about proficiency targets, like what is the proficiency target?
Sure.
Too. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that it would show, if we have to do it, to President Rumaflore's point, is that how bad that COVID has affected our kids learning, so.
Right. And yeah, it's.
I'm not sure we need that data to know, but it would show us. It would prove the
Well,
point.
I think what it would show us is inequities, and it would show us how many students have had a quiet environment and how many kids have reliable connectivity. I think it would be more of a test of an equity measure, honestly, than a learning measure. And so, that's why I'm having to lean on our teachers to say, what is it that you feel good about that is going to be a measure of learning and not a measure of inequities?
And a way to understand who needs what at the end of the school year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know from the practical side of having all my children go through testing recently that
yeah, you just experienced STAR assessment in your home, right?
Yeah, I did at both the fifth grade level.
I just need to interrupt because it's 9:01. We need to.
Oh.
Vote. Yeah.
Hey.
I'm sorry, Rose.
Shall I move that we extend for 15 minutes?
Please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Rose.
Oh, thank you, Karen.
Oh, I just kind of wanted to note that, on a practical level, I really agree with a lot of what I see in this proposal. And I guess the thing that's always front and center for me is are the assessments informing, the current instruction and the subsequent instruction for each individual student. That seems like much more useful information than sort of how the school is doing across the board, although that's important too, but that's harder to get. And I think all these questions about consistency are really important to trying to assess that. But I'll just say that that it is really difficult to do any of that testing in a home environment, period. And the STAR test is by its nature a super challenging test. So for a student that thinks they know the material, like I know for two of my students, they take a test like the STAR test, and it is super hard. Like they're getting high school level questions, and if they get those right, then they're, and so the emotional part of test taking is much different at home than it is when you're in a class environment surrounded by all your peers taking a test. And so I really question, it's like they all walked away going, I did terrible on that. And it was like, well, if they'd been in class, they would have been prepped for what the test was. And we would, we have to make sure it's quiet for them to pay attention. They have to have scratch paper. Like there's all these pieces of it that are just challenging to make consistent. And so, yeah, I'm glad that we're thinking carefully about which tests are important and especially why each one of those tests is important.
Yeah. And, to your point of trying to use these, not just relying on STAR, but, at the elementary level, since we're talking about that, we've got Lexia that gives us good daily data. We have the ST Math that gives us good daily data. We use Math 180 for our support class in the middle school. So, it's not a perfect system, right? We know we've got holes, we've got places where we need more information. It's just about finding what is the best tool given where we're at right now in order to find that information, both for those need the data now, I need to adjust my instruction today, tomorrow, next week, versus I need this data in order to plan for a summer learning program, right? And extended learning program for next year. So that's the conversation that we're having with our educators right now. What value, what data do they value? What do they feel like we can hang our hat on that's giving us good information, both on the kind of daily, weekly and the big picture planning. So we make sure we know, what are we looking at for acceleration learning over if, we're able to do a summer program and an extended day for next year.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah. So I know we're getting out of time. You guys don't need to make a decision. I'm happy to speak with any of you guys. If you have more thoughts, I'll monitor what's going on at the federal, state, and county level. And if there's any big developments, we'll be sure to let you know.
Great. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to 12.3, school business governance, 12.3A, governance handbook 2021, discussion item.
Okay, so we had a board governance workshop last month, and out of that, which really just is the protocols for how we function as a board, that was done by Deb Dudley, who's a representative from the California School Boards Association. So she led us through the revisiting of our protocols and just open discussion about what's working and what we want to tweak. And so we have some edits here that we've brought forward for your consideration. This would be our first read of those edits, and then we'd bring them back on consent if it is okay with all of you. And then I did want to say that we did speak about redoing our vision and mission statement as they are pretty much outdated, to be honest. There's good things in them. There's things we do well and things that aren't as emphasized anymore. There's some things that we want to really change drastically also. And so I know Trustee Popmasil actually has an idea that he wants to float, and we, not that we're going to have it as an edit right now, but just to inform us as we go through our equity process. We had talked about forming our mission and vision statement once we go through our Acosta training and come out with an equity policy, and then do some more visioning mission process. But he was excited about it, and I think wants to share it. And so we have it queued here for Karen to show. But before we do that, Karen, do you have the handbook queued up that we could go through the changes real quick, or no?
It'll just take me a minute. Do you want me to do that first, or do you want the equity?
Why don't we let Mike do that? And while he's working on that, we can.
Okay. Just one moment here.
So it's okay that we do this even though it's not agendized?
Well, it would be part of the mission discussion. Yeah.
Part of board policy?
It would be part of the mission vision statement. So he just wants to plant seeds for the future revision of it. So it is technically agendized.
So a real quick background for anyone who's listening. A acquaintance of mine who is the chair of Habitat for Humanities was looking for board members and connected with this person. And I haven't talked to her yet, so I'm not going to give you names, et cetera. Hopefully when I get that information, I will share it. But as a person who works at a I'm trying to think what the word is. Anyhow, a nonprofit, and it looks like I think she works possibly for the. I'm not sure. Maybe the county. I'm not positive. So when I find out, I'll share that and share her name and all that. But he was talking to me about this person who shared with him what you see ahead of you, the equity pledge draft. And I said, send it to me. He said, well, duh. And so I looked at this, and coincidentally, our governance handbook is on the agenda. And I looked at it, and I looked at the governance handbook, and I said, I see places where this very powerful, in my opinion, piece can go. And specifically, I guess what I'm looking at is, if you look at the form, I guess, is that the first two paragraphs of the sentences basically, in order to guarantee an equitable future with and or for our children, families, and communities, to affirm their identities and experience, and to ensure their safety and well-being. We can change some wordsmithing, but we pledge to the young people of our community, we will work together to eliminate racism and discrimination from the hearts and minds of individuals and from our institutions, organizations, and committees. And again, where that might exactly go, yeah, maybe, I don't know, one's in the vision, one's in the organizational culture, but I see the next piece down, step down from individual, maybe you can lift that up a little bit. Yeah, to organization and institution. I would submit that, and again, wordsmithing it a little bit, if I can do this. I'm so techie. There it is. That the HUSD Board of Education does acknowledge that privilege and complicit bias exist in this country and must be eradicated from Hillsburg Unified School District, and commit to intentional organizational restructuring based on anti-racist analysis and identity reflective of our community. We further commit to examine organizations' practice, power structures, and policies. We commit to change practices and perspectives of racism, sexism, homophobia, and oppression in all its forms. We hold ourselves accountable to transform structures, policies, and practices with inclusive decision-making and other forms of power sharing on all levels of the district's life and work, including culture ties to the district's value, mission, and vision. The Board of Trustees will create the conditions for courageous and uncomfortable conversations in order to address racism. And I submit this to you and for further discussion, maybe a little bit now, as we look at that, in my opinion, very powerful statement, a very strong commitment to anti-racist work and anti-institutional racism in particularly, but racism in general, sexism, homophobia, and other forms of oppression, in order to provide our students, and indeed our families, and hopefully even the community, a more equitable education, a more equitable community, a more equitable, everything. And I would like to see it placed in here. I recognize that we are still working with the Acosta group. And I'm asking the superintendent, if you would, to send you all a copy so you have it in your hands, and also the Acosta group, so they know at least this piece of at least one board member feels about it. I'm willing to answer any questions or whatever, and I know you're just getting this and you're going, what? But I don't know, I'll answer any questions you might have.
I think it's a good word, and I think it's something to inform us in our equity training, and that we can bring it back when we start getting closer to working on policy and visioning and mission statements. So I appreciate you finding it, Mike, and we'll definitely integrate it in the process, and I'll give it to all the trustees next week. So
Thank you for sharing, Mike. That's really powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you want to project the edits in the governance handbook? I'll take you through quickly. We're almost at it's 9:12. Vote again here in a minute. So we changed our names so we know who's on the Board of Trustees, right? So there's the updated names there. We do have our outdated mission and vision stuff that we just went through. Looking for red. Karen, did you find the first one? Oh, so we wanted to change instead of well-known. So some trustees had voiced some concerns about what it means for a student to be well-known. Instead of well-known is well-supported. That implies that we know what the student needs and that we're giving it to them, right? We're supporting them. So we changed that to supported. That was part of our discussion. Data analysis. So one thing that you all have asked for me is for more frequent and proactive data analysis. So that's something that we included in the bullets there. Requesting information from staff. So anytime that staff is asking for something, recognizing that it takes resources from the district to fulfill their request, that it goes to the board president, and there's a discussion between the president and superintendent about how and when to go through with this.
Okay, here's a dumb question. What happens if the board president wants information? Like, does it need to be sort of a second voice in there? I know, Araceli, I know, I'm watching you. No, but seriously, I mean, kind of the idea was to kind of have not a sounding board, but some little balance of that. I don't know.
Right. So I would assume we probably should add something about if the board president makes a request, then the vice president gets involved, so that you always have two. I mean, that makes sense to me. And it's not about any individual. We rotate the leadership. So.
Right. Exactly.
I'm comfortable with that if the rest of the board is.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work on that. Karen, can you make a note?
Yes.
Thank you. And then the real thing, you know, and this goes to the question earlier in the meeting about who's answering an email. All emails that go to the whole board, we have protocol about the board president and or the superintendent answering on behalf of the board. And it's really about making sure everybody has the same information, so that no trustee is on the day making a decision not knowing something. We want everyone to have the same information. So anytime there's information going to the board, we want to make sure that every board member gets it. So that's that red there. All questions and answers that come from trustees will be forwarded to all trustees. Public comment. So this, we just added public comment as there's some stuff about public comment and effective deliberation in here. We want to be more transparent. And we did give the opt-out for the president. We had previously had a rule that you could not opt out of the presidency, and we recognize that life happens and there are times when people can't fulfill that and you know, responsibly would ask not to. And so we've added that language also.
We have to extend the meeting.
I was gonna say, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Reluctantly.
We're almost there, guys.
Keep going, Karen.
Just 1 second. Sorry.
So do we what am I trying to say?
You only have 15 minutes. No, just kidding.
I know. No. I mean, I just want to make sure it's really clear. What if somebody doesn't even want to be vice president? Is that an option? I mean, they aren't on the path. They don't want to be on the path to the presidency. 2022. No, I'm kidding. 2024. But I mean, really,
that, Donna, let me go back and read it. And if that's unclear, we can do that too. Because I agree, like I think the vice president should be on the path to presidency because
yes,
training.
Right.
So,
but then things happen. And
right.
if you can't do that, then I think the nomination is fine.
Agreed. Yeah. So we'll go through and make sure that's either clear. And if it's not, we'll bring you an additional edit. So we will not do this in consent because we want you to read it again.
Okay.
Not that you don't in consent, but publicly.
Yeah.
So there's some discussion. So,
Okay.
all right, Karen, can you go? We should be close to the end, I
I
think.
think that's it.
Yeah.
Responding to emails.
There.
Again, yeah. So this is about everybody having the same information and making sure the board is communicating with one voice, because no single trustee has any power. It's the unified power of the board, right? And so members acknowledge receipt of email. So definitely say thanks for your email, but know that the board president or the superintendent will be providing an official response.
So Chris, look at the last bullet on that.
Yeah, so when an individual trustee to that question receives an email, they can definitely respond, but they will
confer with the president.
Confer with the board president and superintendent regarding the response. And then we're going to make sure any communication shared goes to everybody so that everybody has the same information when they're making decisions.
Okay, and that answers an earlier question.
Correct.
From the.
And that's
and
again,
Chris, is that the responsibility of the board member who's received the communication, or is that the responsibility of the superintendent?
The board member who's received the communication can do their communication, but then they should forward it to me or to Karen to make sure the rest of the trustees are receiving it.
Okay.
And I mean, I have to say there have been times where I've just done that. Like if I get an email, I'll respond and say, I received your email. Thank you so much for taking the time. And then I copy like Chris and the board president and say, one of the two, or we'll get back to you. And, please feel free to contact me in the future and, that kind of thing.
That would be really nice to have that delineated though in our governance handbook. So that
it's kind of that. I mean, it's because it's a lot of time for the trustee to then go to the superintendent. And I mean, you can certainly do that and get the answer and blah, blah, blah. But I just feel like if I'm not going to respond to it and the superintendent or the board president are going to respond to it, then I might as well I got it. And here's who's going to respond to you.
Yeah, I like that.
So are you asking for us to write that in, Araceli?
I think to make it clear, I think
or
it would
an example. Yeah. I mean, there's different ways of doing it, right? But you could also call me and we can talk it through or whatever.
Yeah, totally. And you can definitely say more than I got your email. Thank you. I mean, you can make comments, I mean, you're thoughtful, whatever. I mean, But as far as the response, it really needs to be whatever, coming from the source. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought this language reflected the spirit of what we talked about, but maybe we just want to make it a little bit more specific in terms of what the action items that we will all take in those circumstances are.
Yeah, or we could present options like I can work on that. That's pretty
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I feel like it should be inviting people to send us feedback. And,
Yeah, I mean, that's what
you know,
is
it
not-
shouldn't convey the opposite, which is
We're
like we
not asking
welcome
you not to
communication.
interact. We're just making sure everyone has the same information and that the staff in the district have a chance to rectify any issue that arise, and it's not, you know what I mean? Because it is
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just think in terms of a bullet communicating the spirit of in which communication is received, it should be positive, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And along those lines, I don't know that there's even anything in here about meeting with constituents or meeting with people who want to voice concerns or voice opinions. And, you know, we're here to listen and then relay that information, and same process, whether it's an email, whether it's meeting with someone in person, right?
Right.
Well, it's hard though.
Maybe
Donna, that's hard.
Responding to emails to ensure all members are apprised of, I don't know, something to the effect of making sure that stating what Rose just said, the purpose of this is to make sure that everyone's informed.
And consistent messaging.
Mhm.
Right. So it's not
Right.
one thing.
And accurate and consistent.
But I can work on that and bring you some revisions next time.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So we will not be, okay, so this is just a discussion item. So moving on to 12.3B, California School Board Association Delegate Assembly Election.
So you all have an opportunity to elect a representative for the California School Boards Association representing you. You have one choice this time. It's Mr. Omar Medina, who's a trustee at Santa Rosa City Schools. So as a board, you can vote for Omar, or I guess not vote for Omar. But there's no choice.
Go Omar.
Yeah. So
What
certainly.
do we know about Mr. Omar, Mr. Medina rather?
I don't know anything besides he's on Santa Rosa City Schools. So.
And he's the only one running.
Yep.
And he is the only candidate. So, and I respect his willingness to represent us.
Okay. With that strong advocacy, do you need a motion or what?
We do.
I move that we do what, anyhow, so moved.
That we elect Omar Medina for CSBA subregion.
Yeah, that we, yeah.
I second
I'll
that.
second.
Oh. All in favor? Oh, who seconded it?
Was it?
I think I did. I don't know.
Crystal, give it to Crystal.
Okay.
Moved by Trustee Potmasil and seconded by Trustee Lopez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Go Omar.
Passes. Okay, Board of Trustee reports, comments, requests for information?
Oh, God. No.
Okay, well, the meeting is adjourned.
We're gonna go back to closed session.
9:22, it is.
Yeah, let's go back to closed.
We're all
session.
gonna, yes, we're gonna return to closed session, but
Same link?
Is it the same link from earlier?
Yes. Do you guys, are you guys good?
Yes.
Click on it. Okay.
thank you, everyone.